Chapter 940 Change of the Providence Divine Authority, Absorption of the 3000 Great Tao. Chapter 940 Change of the Providence Divine Authority, Absorption of the 3000 Great Tao. The cultivators in the inn left with life's appearance. Hanju noticed that they were not afraid, but went to watch the commotion. After millions of years, the life faction was no longer as notorious as before. Because they had done many good things in this chaotic domain, they had left a good name. Huang Zuantian stood proudly on the city wall. Beside him stood ancestor Shitian, Li Daokong, Shi Dudao, Jing Tiangong, and the other calamity life controllers. The street below was filled with figures looking at them fervently. Huang Zuantian glanced around and smiled. Today we will only recruit 10 people. Other than refining the primordial chaos Tao fruit, you also have to have the chaotic merit. At most 100 thoughts. I will lead the life faction to the next land of karma and spread the karma of the calamity life controller. I will open peace for the chaos and inherit the great Tao. His voice was very loud and echoed in the city. This city was not simple. The cultivators who could come here were at least at the deity realm. Most of them were at the zenith heaven realm, and the city lord was a freedom sage. The entire city cheered after Huang Zuantian finished speaking. Although Hanju didn't see it with his own eyes, his will saw Li Daokong smile. It had been a long time. Life had already transformed. At first glance, they looked like a group of good people working hard to save the world. Hanju didn't go out. He watched for a long time until the life faction left. He still didn't walk out of the inn. He could tell that Li Daokong had completely submitted and did not want to return to the heavenly Tao. Li Daokong was already a freedom sage and was not far from attaining the great Tao. Perhaps this was his fate. The calamity life controllers were actually not absolutely evil. It was just that the philosophy of the first life black sovereign was wrong. The calamity life controller was the great Tao Providence Divine Authority and was deduced by the supreme rules. Previously, it was not accepted by the chaos because it was not qualified. This was also good. Everyone had their own path. Shi Dudao was the same. His smile was the same as Li Daokong's. Hanju shook his head and laughed. Then he stood up and left. He would visit them in their dreams in the future. He would help them again if they changed their minds. To some people, fate was very difficult to change. But to Hanju, he was the one who determined fate. For the next period of time, Hanju continued to travel the chaos and visit his disciples. Tao Sovereign, Zhao Xianyuan, and Jiangyi still followed Lao Dan. They wandered in the chaos and never settled down. Zhou Fan was also developing his great Tao Tower. It was not bad. Most of the other disciples were in the heavenly Tao. Some established inheritances, and some promoted Tao techniques. They were all on their own righteous path, and were active and not confused. Hanju saw them one by one with different identities. Only Han Tua he did not look for. He was the safest with the ultimate god of punishment watching over him. In the blink of an eye, more than 20,000 years passed. Hanju returned to his Taoist temple and started a new round of cultivation. The perfected great Tao supreme realm was not enough. His goal was to become a Tao creator, no, a creator lord. Above the endless sea, azure heaven mystic sat in the air. The surrounding waves curled up, as if they wanted to connect the sky and the sea. 3 green and red figures also meditated behind him. They leaned against each other and surrounded them. On the beach 10 million kilometers away, Carefree Immortal held a broken shell and looked in the direction of the blue sky through the hole. This kid is still lacking, Carefree Immortal muttered to himself with a subtle expression. I have to arrange an opponent for him. He casually crushed the shell into dust and grabbed a handful of sand. With a casual splash, the sand floated in the air and formed 2 words. Divine Punisher. The 5 great divine punishers are very good opponents. The corners of Carefree Immortal's mouth curled up as he vanished. Azure Heaven Mystic opened his eyes the moment he disappeared. This fellow finally left. He stared at me for so long. Azure Heaven Mystic grinned and fled, quickly jumping out of this world. Azure Heaven Mystic was in a good mood as he traveled through the chaos. He had the heroic aura of a bird flying freely in the sky. Dog, you keep instigating me to hate the divine might heavenly sage. Do you really think I'm brainless? I'll be the first to find trouble with you when I master the great Tao Providence Divine Authority. However, you've done me a favor. I won't kill you, but I have to teach you a lesson. There are some people you can't scheme against. Azure Heaven Mystic thought proudly. He was very fast, afraid that the carefree immortal would catch up. He was heading towards the heavenly Tao. After returning to the heavenly Tao guarded by the divine might heavenly sage, would a small carefree immortal dare to come and seek death? Azure Heaven Mystic was looking forward to the scene of the carefree immortal, facing the divine might heavenly sage. He wondered if this fellow dared to say anything bad then. 100,000 years passed quickly. Hanju opened his eyes and looked satisfied. Even though he had reached the perfected Great Tao Supreme Realm, his cultivation speed did not slow down. 100,000 years was enough for him to feel his cultivation level increase. His gaze landed on Ancestor Tian Su. Ancestor Tian Su had already stayed in the primordial heavenly prison for 100,000 years and had yet to be successfully enslaved. The reason he did not kill him was that he did not have any hatred for him. This fellow hated the Tao ancestor. There was no need to kill him. It was better to keep him as a fighter. It just so happened that Hanju also wanted to know something about the Tao ancestor from him. The Tao ancestor's karma couldn't be deduced, so Hanju couldn't figure it out. There was no Tao ancestor among the 5 Tao creators. He was illusory. He had to be wary of such an existence, especially since he was related to the heavenly Tao. The Tao ancestor might even be hiding in the heavenly Tao. Hanju started to check his emails. His circle of friends over the years was very lively. Most of them were cultivating and encountering opportunities, as if they were all rushing to the chaotic assembly. Speaking of which, the chaotic assembly was still more than 5 million years away. It was still very far away. Hanju looked forward to the chaotic assembly. With Han Huang's potential, the first chaotic assembly was very likely to become a battle between mighty figures. At that time, only the great Tao sages were qualified to fight for the chaotic 10 absolutes. At this moment, Hanju seemed to sense something and looked up. Another person had attained the great Tao. In the past million years, several great Tao sages had been born, more than before. The existence who had attained the great Tao this time was an acquaintance of his. To be precise, it was a familiar aura. Fusang Tree. The Fusang Tree had left the Cultivate diligently become Immortal Mountain for a long time. It had always kept a low profile and hid at the edge of the chaos to cultivate. Hanju's gaze landed on the Fusang Tree. The current Fusang Tree was even taller than the entire heavenly Tao. It had billions of branches, and the flowers and fruits it bore were countless times larger than stars. It was like an ancient divine tree that had been born from the chaos. Hanju showed a frown. The Fusang Tree's breakthrough speed surprised him. He discovered that there was more than one great Tao aura on it. From the point of view above the chaos, the Fusang Tree was actually absorbing the Tao power of the 3,000 great Tao. Although it was very weak, it was indeed doing this. Something was wrong. The Fusang Tree did not have such an ability before. Hanju began to deduce, and discovered a powerful aura that he hadn't felt for a long time. Chapter 941 Return of the Ancestor God. Hanju's Destiny. Chapter 941 Return of the Ancestor God. Hanju's Destiny. Primordial Ancestor God. The previous leader of the Divine Spirits. Hanju sensed his aura on the Fusang Tree. The primordial ancestor God was cursed by him, and was attacked by the ultimate God of punishment. He could only die and leave a trace of life sealed in the supreme rules. Hanju guessed that he would revive, but didn't expect it to be so fast. It was not a coincidence that this fellow found the Fusang Tree. The Fusang Tree had karma with Hanju. It was very easy to deduce. After all, the Fusang Tree had always been in his Tao field. All the karma was related to him. Hanju observed the Fusang Tree carefully. The primordial ancestor God was not hiding on the Fusang Tree, but his aura was still there. Hanju couldn't figure out what the primordial ancestor God wanted to do, and had no choice but to use the derivation function. I want to know why the primordial ancestor God helped the Fusang Tree. 10 trillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. Now a mere 10 trillion years of lifespan was no longer in Hanju's eyes. Besides, even the 10 trillion-year-old ancient desolate divine spirit was killed by him. Hanju's consciousness evolved into an illusion. He opened his eyes and saw a pale space. Other than the Fusang tree, and a figure under it, there was nothing else. There was not even land. The Fusang tree asked, "Who are you?" The primordial ancestor god did not reveal his true body. He was only a shadow that emitted light. The primordial ancestor god smiled and said, "I'm considered a former great Tao divine spirit. I came to you this time to give you a fortuitous encounter and help you attain the great Tao manifestation. I'll also use you to comprehend the rules of space and time. Of course, this is only to support each other. I won't force you." Fusang tree was silent. "You are one of the 10 great divine trees of the heavenly Tao. You have the creation of the primordial chaos and are not allowed to transform. This is because you represent the rules and can connect to the myriad worlds of the chaos. You have great creation and great karma. However, because of a certain existence, you have developed intelligence and are already bearing a huge price. You can't transcend relying solely on yourself. Furthermore, your existence has already attracted the attention of many mighty figures. You need a backing," the primordial ancestor god said casually. The Fusang tree said in a low voice, "I have a backing." The primordial ancestor god said, "I know. Speaking of which, I still have a battle with him. However, I was plotted against by a dark junior. All these years, I've been staring at the chaos and seeing through many things. I'm not his match, but your backing might not always be watching you. The fact that I can tell you my relationship with him is enough to show my sincerity. If I want to rely on you to scheme against him, I can hide it and show the benefits. It's enough to convince you. I need you and you also need me. No one in the chaos knows better than me what you represent and how to help you grow." The Fusang tree asked, "What happens after that?" The primordial ancestor god said, "When you attain the great Tao manifestation, I will obtain my understanding of the great Tao of space-time. After that, you and I will have nothing to do with each other. I don't need you to do anything. We are just taking what we need." The Fusang tree fell silent. After a while the Fusang tree said firmly, "All right." The illusion shattered. Hanju opened his eyes and sighed. He didn't dislike the Fusang tree's choice. If it were him, he would also want to transform. As for the primordial ancestor god, he would wait and see. In any case, the primordial ancestor god's enemies were the ultimate god of punishment and the dark forbidden lord. From the looks of it, the primordial ancestor god was temporarily helpless. Hanju's gaze landed on the door of the great Tao next. The Fusang trees were transformed into a woman with a graceful figure, and she used her dermic powers to open the door. At this moment, several mighty figures were already waiting behind the great Tao door and discussing the Fusang tree's foundation. Han Huang was also here. Every time this kid saw a new great Tao sage appear, he would definitely come to join in the fun. However, he was righteous and never allowed other great Tao sages to suppress the juniors. Instead, he gained a reputation and was respected by the juniors. Many stunning existences would appear every 100,000 years. In the eyes of all living beings, Han Huang was no longer a prodigy, but a peerless expert who suppressed an area. Of course, in the eyes of existences like Hanju, Han Huang was still a prodigy. The definition of a prodigy was never absolute. Han Huang already intended to show his charm, which made Hanju very relieved. With him around, Hanju did not plan to say anything. The Fusang tree should be able to succeed. Several hours later, the Fusang tree successfully stepped into the Great Tao realm. After its will walked into the door of the Great Tao, it saw a group of Great Tao sages. The Fusang tree was stunned when it saw Han Huang. It immediately became nervous and hurriedly bowed. "Greetings, master." With that said, the mighty figures looked at Han Huang. A Great Tao sage teased him. "Divine General Han is really powerful. You captured another junior? She's so beautiful. You're really lucky." Han Huang didn't know the Fusang tree, but he was very smart and asked, "Are you talking about my father, Hanju?" The Great Tao sages immediately became serious and did not dare to joke anymore. When it came to the Divine Might Heavenly Sage, they knew what to say and what not to say. Even they looked at the Fusang tree with reverence. The Fusang tree had heard Hanju's words in the past, but it didn't know Hanju's status in the chaos. However, she could read their expressions and see through their thoughts. The Fusang tree sized him up inside. As expected of Master's son, "You're really talented. You're too similar to Master. What's your name?" "My name is Han Huang." Han Huang smiled and pondered. He had to figure out the relationship between her and his father. Dao Comprehension Sword also called his father Master, but she was actually one of his mothers. Han Huang smiled and said, "Everyone disperse. We have to chat." The great Dao sages did not dare to refuse and left. They felt a little regretful. Apart from suppressing the juniors, he could also rope them in here. Especially after seeing Han Huang rope in many geniuses for the heavenly court. They naturally had such an idea. Hanju was relieved to see the Fusang tree acknowledge Han Huang. His gaze landed on the primordial ancestor god. The primordial ancestor god did not stay with the Fusang tree. There was only a remnant aura. The Fusang tree's main body was transforming. Hanju used the ultimate origin power to isolate the domain, where the Fusang tree's main body was. Other than protecting the Fusang tree, he also wanted to warn the chaotic mighty figures. This tree was protected by the divine might heavenly sage. Hanju sent a voice transmission to the ultimate god of punishment, revealing that the primordial ancestor god was about to revive. It was fine as long as the ultimate god of punishment dealt with the primordial ancestor god. There was no need for the current Hanju to personally act. The primordial ancestor god was not his match. Who was qualified to be his match in the entire chaos? Only a Dao creator outside of the chaos. Hanju was very proud. Wait. This mentality was not good. The previous primordial ancestor god and ancient desolate divine spirit also thought that they were invincible. But they were surpassed by him. Hanju's expression became serious. "I want to know if an existence will surpass me in the future? 100 trillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue?" Chapter 942 Primordial Spirit, Hidden Sex Banquet. Chapter 942 Primordial Spirit, Hidden Sex Banquet 100 trillion years. It was comparable to the ancient desolate divine spirit, a half-step creator. Hanju's heart sank. So there was really an unknown mighty figure in the ancient desolate? That made sense. Hanju was already powerful enough, but he still couldn't see through some unknown areas of the chaos. If there was no mighty figure protecting him, how could he not spy? Hanju chose to continue. He could still afford 100 trillion years. Hanju entered the illusion. He opened his eyes and discovered that he had arrived in a dark space. The surroundings were filled with wisps of strange purple aura. In the distance, vaguely sinister and mighty shadows floated. Hanju discovered that 9 figures were gathered together. They were arguing. Chaos. It's just a hypothesis. How ridiculous. We can't show ourselves at all with the primordial fiend celestial suppressing us. Yes, why scheme? His power is too strong. We're not his match at all. We can't control the primordial chaos. Opening the chaos is even more wishful thinking. Brother's plan can't be realized. So what if we create the chaos? With the primordial fiend celestial around, it's meaningless even if the chaos exists. These 9 figures spoke in a language Hanju had never heard before. But he could understand their meaning and translate it into his own language in his mind with their cultivation realms. Hanju raised his eyebrows. Could the 9 figures be the 9th chaos, and the 8 primordial spirits? Previously, he had recorded the relevant information when he checked the 9th chaos information. The first 8 primordial spirits had failed to create the chaos. Only the 9th chaos had succeeded. What were they plotting? How could it threaten Hanju if it was only related to the chaos? A figure said, "We each have to try to open the chaos. We have to inherit the failed experiences of our predecessors and place our hopes on our 9th brother." The other 7 figures looked at the thinnest figure. Hanju guessed that it was the 9th chaos. The 9th chaos said anxiously, "If all my brothers die, I won't live alone. It's not my intention to open up the chaos. Actually, isn't it good for us to be like this? The primordial fiend celestial didn't bully us. It just didn't let us create more primordial spirits." His words attracted the 8 primordial spirits' anger. who were so frightened that they did not dare to speak again. The current ninth chaos was completely different from the ninth chaos that Hanju had imagined. It was not so unfathomable and absolutely invincible. Its personality was more like a brat. A primordial spirit said, "We can leave a backup plan even if we fail. We will each leave a trace of the origin mark for our ninth brother. If we really fail, when our ninth brother revives in the future, we will place our hopes on him." Hanju was enlightened. So the 8 primordial spirits wanted to revive, and had the ninth chaos backing. They could naturally rise forcefully and threaten him. Not long after the illusion ended, the subsequent conversation was about how to open up the chaos, and had nothing to do with Hanju. His consciousness returned to his body, and he opened his eyes. "I want to know which primordial spirit has revived. 100 trillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Could it have already grown to the level of the ancient desolate divine spirit?" Hanju's heart sank. He immediately chose to continue. A tall figure appeared in his mind, and lines of words appeared in front of him. Zhao Shuangquan. Early stage Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal Realm. Reincarnation of the 8th Chaos Primordial Spirit. Disciple of a sage. Disciple of the hidden sect. Innate great creation. 8th Chaos Reincarnation. Strange. Why didn't it trigger the notification of the Khanate Providence Bearer? Hanju counted with his fingers. So Zhao Shuangquan was born in the past 100,000 years. He stayed in the 3rd Dao field, and stayed away from the heavenly Dao. It was worth mentioning that Zhao Shuangquan was also Su Qi's personal disciple. He was born with a phenomenon, but such a situation was not unprecedented in the heavenly Dao. Currently, Zhao Shuangquan had yet to show his unparalleled talent. This was difficult. This was his grand disciple. Hanju felt that it was not a coincidence that the 8th chaos was born in the heavenly Dao. "I want to know if the 9th chaos arranged for the 8th chaos to descend into the heavenly Dao to scheme against me? 100 quadrillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue?" "Continue. No schemes for the time being." Hanju heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed that his shout when facing the ancient desolate divine spirit was very effective. He guessed that the 9th chaos was afraid that someone would harm his brother, so it was safer to plant him in the heavenly Dao. However, the fact that he did not scheme for the time being meant that he might scheme in the future. After all, Hanju had deduced that Zhao Shuangquan would threaten him. Forget it. This fellow needs time to grow. At most, I'll find a chance to enslave him. Besides, how can his growth speed compare to mine? Hanju thought silently, and felt a sense of danger. He looked invincible in the chaos, but it was only in the present. There would always be variables. The change of power in this world was never determined by talent. Opportunities were more important. Just like Huang Zuentian, whose potential was average, he had already walked in front of his personal disciples by relying on a huge opportunity. "I should see the hidden sect disciples if there's a chance," Hanju thought silently. He immediately sent a voice transmission to all the personal disciples. They were to gather in the 100-peak Immortal River in 100,000 years, including Li Daokong, who was in the Life faction. He also asked Li Xianao to prepare for this hidden sect event. This time, Hanju planned to bring the Fiend Celestial Army to the 100-peak Immortal River, but he still had to hide their bloodline. He continued cultivating after arranging everything. However, the personal disciples could not remain calm. This was the first gathering of the hidden sect after millions of years. In the myriad worlds projection, personal disciples appeared one after another. "Did you hear Grandmaster's arrangements?" "I heard. This is a good thing. We haven't seen each other for a long time. It's time to gather." "Yes, our relationship would have long become distant if not for the myriad worlds projection. Master is still the best. He has such a mystical power that can cover the chaos. Ha ha ha, I'll let you see my glory when the time comes." The personal disciples chatted excitedly. It was unknown who started it, but they began to talk about their disciples. They were no longer as young as before. They all had their own inheritances. Not to mention disciples, they even had grand-disciples. Some had already given birth to descendants and established families. The news quickly reached Han Huang's ears. He was not in the myriad worlds projection, but the personal disciples could send news through the Great Tao Door. Generally speaking, the domain where the Great Tao Door was located was not private. Very few mighty figures spread the news here. But this matter was not shameful, so it reached Han Huang's ears. Han Huang was excited. He wanted to see his father's disciples. He immediately told the evil heavenly emperor about this. Ha ha ha, this is a good thing. Your father is usually in seclusion. If there's no meet-up, he might not know even if his disciples go missing. The evil heavenly emperor smiled and won Han Huang's heart. Then he changed the topic and said meaningfully, Huanger, you have to go this time and help me. Cough cough, you know. Han Huang patted his chest and smiled. Your Majesty, don't worry. I'll bring you at least 10 geniuses. They can definitely make the heavenly court stronger. Chapter 943 Heavenly Sage's Pride, Heavenly Tao's Pride. Chapter 943 Heavenly Sage's Pride. Heavenly Tao's Pride. Han Huang found Jiang Juesher, after chatting with the evil heavenly emperor. Jiang Juesher hesitated before asking, Master didn't inform me. It's probably not good for me to go, right? Han Huang waved his hand and said, He didn't inform me either, but I want to join in the fun. Senior, let's go together. The reason why father didn't tell you might be because you've never entered the hidden sect. But no matter what, you're my father's disciple. If you go, with your great Tao sage cultivation, you'll definitely add to the hidden sect meeting. Jiang Juesher felt that it made sense, and nodded in agreement with a smile. He was also looking forward to meeting his fellow disciples. Seeing that he agreed, Han Huang did not disturb him anymore, and went to inform Han Qing'er. In the next tens of thousands of years, the door of the Great Tao welcomed several geniuses who had attained the Tao, causing the chaotic mighty figures to be secretly shocked. Too many cultivators had attained the Great Tao recently. There were more than ever before. They all felt a sense of danger. The chaos looked peaceful, but it was not a good thing for ancient existences like them. Most of their cultivation levels had already reached a bottleneck. Their benefits and power would be weakened when their juniors rose. However, the ultimate god of punishment was too powerful, and protected the geniuses greatly. He strictly forbade ancient existences from attacking the juniors. Of course, this was only the feeling of the great Tao sages. To the living beings of the chaos, the current era was very exciting. More and more geniuses rose. The number of chaotic life forms also increased. The reputation of the divine might heavenly sage, and the great Tao divine spirit, was gradually replaced by juniors. 100,000 years was already a long time for 90% of the living beings in the chaos. Under freedom, every 100,000 years was an era. At the bottom of the chaos, the sky was vast and the murky mist covered most things in the world. Tao's sovereign suddenly stood up and said to Lao Dan not far away, Old man, we're returning to the heavenly Tao. Zhao Xinyuan and Jiang Yi opened their eyes with anticipation. They had just attained the great Tao not long ago, and were in high spirits. Stunned, Lao Dan asked, Why do you want to go back? You've already attained the great Tao. Why are you still going back? Aren't you going to create your own lineage? Tao Sovereign smiled. Master has ordered the hidden sect disciples to gather. How can we not go? Yes, I can go back and show off. Master definitely knows that we have attained the great Tao. He can only show off to the other fellow disciples. Jiang Yi and Zhao Xinyuan replied. The two of them were very excited, and looked forward to it. Lao Dan was silent. Tao Sovereign saw through his thoughts and smiled. Old man, we won't serve the heavenly Tao, but the heavenly Tao is our foundation after all. You have also helped us, so we won't forget you. It's just that we can't be loyal to the three pure sacred world. I hope you understand. In the future, the four of us can create a lineage together. As for the connection between the heavenly Tao and the three pure sacred world, the chaos is so big. Why should the two worlds fight? Isn't it better to develop together and advance together? Besides, even if we help the three pure sacred world, we won't have any chance of winning. You understand that with my master around, the three pure sacred world can't compare to the heavenly Tao at all. Tao Sovereign's tone was very intimate in the beginning, but the latter words were heartless. Lao Dan was furious, but he had to admit it. It was the truth. The divine might heavenly sage was a transcendent existence that everyone looked up to, including the three pure sages of the three pure sacred world. Lao Dan looked at the solemn Tao sovereign and felt bitter. The divine might heavenly sage clearly did not care about these three brats, but he could make them loyal. Little did he know that although Hanju didn't care, the myriad world's projection had always maintained the feelings of all the disciples. Regarding the myriad world's projection, it was a secret among the personal disciples of the hidden sect. They never revealed it to outsiders. No matter how good the relationship between Tao Sovereign and the other two was with Lao Dan, they never said anything about it. Zhao Xinyuan walked over and hugged Lao Dan's shoulder. He smiled and said, "Don't think about it. Although you're Laozi's clone, you're already independent. You should think for yourself. In the future, the four of us will definitely create a great Tao system that's on par with the heavenly Tao." Lao Dan's expression softened as he pushed his hand away angrily. At this moment, boom, the ground shook violently, and countless cracks appeared on the ground in the distance. Terrifying heat rose, steaming the sky. Jiangyi cursed. "Again? What's hidden here?" Lao Dan said with a solemn expression. "The vengeful spirits here have mysteriously disappeared and become a cultivation holy land ever since the ancient desolate divine spirit's death. However, there are often earthquakes. I suspect that there's a huge secret hidden under our feet, but the sage sense of a great Tao sage can't spy underground." Tao Sovereign frowned. "Let's go. Let's return to the heavenly Tao." The others had no objections and immediately left, disappearing into the mist. Not long after they left, a heavy panting sounded in the world, as if a chaotic beast was napping and could awaken at any time. Outside the 33rd heaven, in the sage Tao field, in the dark palace, a man in a white Taoist robe was meditating and cultivating. A strong light suddenly lit up in the hall. The door opened, and a figure flew in like a ghost. In the blink of an eye, he landed in front of the Taoist-robed man. It was Su Qi. The current Su Qi wore noble black clothes, and was filled with the aura of a sage. He said expressionlessly, "Disciple." The Taoist-robed man in front of him was his personal disciple, Zhao Shuangquan. He did not have many disciples. The only one he cared about was this disciple in front of him. Zhao Shuangquan opened his eyes and hurriedly stood up to bow respectfully. "Your Grandmaster has ordered that the disciples of the hidden sect will gather in the 100-peak Immortal River. This is an unprecedented event for the hidden sect. I'm planning to bring you there," Su Qi said indifferently. Zhao Shuangquan's eyes lit up. He asked excitedly, "Can I really? What do I need to prepare?" Su Qi said, "You're too weak. There are still tens of thousands of years. I'll fight for the next sage position for you. You have to attain the Tao. Don't disappoint me." With that, he turned around to leave. However, he suddenly stopped and said, "The hidden sect has countless disciples and countless geniuses. No matter what, you are still a third-generation disciple. There will definitely be a comparison. Although you are still young, you are inferior to others." Su Qi turned into black smoke and dissipated before he finished speaking. Zhao Shuangquan touched his chin and muttered to himself, "To be able to make Master come personally and say these words, it seems that this matter is very important. I have long wanted to see the geniuses of the hidden sect. I have to win honor for Master and let Ancestor see my talent." He smiled proudly as he thought of showing off. Then, he immediately stood up and went to find his good friends, wanting to ask about the hidden sect disciples. On the other side, outside the heavenly Tao, in the welcoming sacred palace, Sect Master Tianju was welcoming Azure Heaven Mystic. Sect Master Tianju had a kind expression and looked at Azure Heaven Mystic in satisfaction. Azure Heaven Mystic was the entire heavenly Tao's pride. Chapter 944 Prodigy Convention. Chapter 944 Prodigy Convention, Sect Master. I've decided to stay in the heavenly Tao in the future. The chaos is indeed exciting, but I've also obtained a huge opportunity. I don't have to take risks anymore. Azure Heaven Mystic smiled confidently. Sect Master Tianju smiled and nodded. It's good that you're back. There are still more than 5 million years. Hurry up and cultivate. You have to win the eternal peak. Azure Heaven Mystic smiled proudly. Of course. The two sages looked at each other and laughed. Azure Heaven Mystic asked, something big has happened to the Heavenly Tao recently. I sense that many freedom sages with no providence of the Heavenly Tao on them have come. Sect Master Tianju smiled. The hidden sect is gathering the disciples for a meeting. The commotion will naturally be huge. The current hidden sect has spread in the chaos. Not to mention the second and third generation disciples. Even the fourth, fifth, and sixth generation disciples have made contributions in the chaos. This gathering is naturally as fast as lightning. Interested, Azure Heaven Mystic asked with a smile. Can I participate? To be honest, I'm also very interested in the hidden sect. Sect Master Tianju shook his head. The Heavenly Tao will definitely be lively during this period of time. You can naturally interact with the hidden sect disciples if you want to. However, you can't enter the 100-peak Immortal River. You're not a hidden sect disciple. No one dared to joke about the divine might Heavenly Sage, especially in the circle of Heavenly Tao sages. The sages were only curious about the hidden sect gathering and not nervous. There was no need to go through so much trouble if the divine might Heavenly Sage wanted to seize power. One word was enough. There were still countless chaotic forces in the Heavenly Tao. Most of them were here to inspect the Heavenly Tao and wanted to cooperate with it. They could use the hidden sect's power to intimidate the chaos. For a time, the hidden sect was busy, and so were the Heavenly Tao sages. 10,000 years passed. Hanju opened his eyes and stretched. Another 100,000 years passed. It was really comfortable. Hanju began to check his emails. His circle of friends in the past 100,000 years was very calm. Calmer than before. He observed the primordial world after reading the emails. Several hours later, he slowly stood up. He teleported into the main Tao field with Qingwan and Xing Hongxian. The two women opened their eyes and were stunned when they saw that the scene in front of them had changed. Hanju smiled and said, "The hidden sect meeting is about to begin. I brought you here to take a look. You can go out for a walk first." The two women immediately smiled. They naturally wanted to join in the fun. It was time to take a breather after cultivating for so many years. Hanju summoned Li Xianao after the two women left. Hanju's clone was in the main Tao field. He could contact Li Xianao at any time and enter and leave. Currently, many personal disciples had returned from the 100-peak Immortal River, such as Chu Shuren, Tao Sovereign, Zhao Xinyuan, and others. Li Xianao entered and knelt down excitedly. This hidden sect meeting was unprecedented and had great influence. He was the most respected person because he was the host. All the disciples had to give him face. Even the sages of the Heavenly Tao and the mighty figures from the chaos had to welcome him with a smile. Hanju asked, "When can we start?" Li Xianao said, "I'm only waiting for your order. Give me a few days of notice." Hanju smiled. "Prepare to start. I'll stay in the 100-peak Immortal River during this period of time." Li Xianao nodded and left. Hanju teleported to the second Tao field and strictly forbade all the fiend celestials from revealing their bloodlines. Then he sent them to the 100-peak Immortal River. With the addition of the 53 chaotic fiend celestials, the 100-peak Immortal River was immediately in chaos, especially the Black Hell Chicken and the chaotic Heavenly Dog. They shouted everywhere like overlords patrolling their territory. Hanju began to teach his personal disciples one after another. He talked alone, and everyone chatted for a period of time to nurture their feelings. He couldn't see them all at once. Hanju also wanted to hear their stories. It was more interesting than the messages in his circle of friends. 3 days later, he met all the second-generation disciples. As for the third-generation disciples, there was no need to meet them. Their masters were the link. The hidden sect meeting began under everyone's anticipation. The 100-peak Immortal River was very lively, but the outside world could not spy on them. The second-generation disciples appeared one after another and spoke, raising the atmosphere of the banquet. The outer sect disciples served wine and spirit fruits one after another. This joy lasted for several days, and the disciples of the various generations became familiar with each other. Su Qi's only disciple, Zhao Shuangquan, also attracted the attention of his fellow disciples. His potential was indeed impressive. Because Zhao Xingyuan had the same surname as him, the two of them became close, and even agreed to explore the chaos together. On the last day, Hanju appeared and let all the disciples see his true appearance. After a few simple words, Hanju preached the Tao to all the disciples. It lasted for 10 years. The hidden sect meeting this time could be considered to have ended successfully. There was no melodramatic incident of someone causing trouble. All the disciples had to follow the rules in front of Hanju, and didn't dare to act recklessly. The hidden sect disciples' enthusiasm did not dissipate after the meeting ended. Even the heavenly Tao became lively. Hanju paid attention to Zhao Shuangquan, but didn't show it. This prodigy reincarnated from the 8th chaos was indeed impressive. Although he had not reached the point of being the best in the hidden sect, he was definitely one of the top few. Su Qi also obtained the envy of the other personal disciples because of this. He didn't show it on his face, but he was delighted. Hanju didn't return immediately after the hidden sect meeting ended. Instead, he transformed into a mortal and traveled the mortal world. Several decades later, outside the 33rd heaven, Tao's sovereign led the way and held the first heavenly Tao prodigy meeting in Longhao's Tao field. He invited the heavenly Tao prodigies to gather. It was not to spar, but to talk about the situation of the heavenly Tao and the situation in the chaos. Azure Heaven Mystic also came. He was rather disdainful of Tao's sovereign and the other two. He felt that these three were acting cool, but the other party was indeed powerful. He was truly a great Tao sage. After the prodigy convention ended, some geniuses suggested sparring. Everyone was a prodigy and was proud and arrogant. No one was convinced by the other. Zhao Shuangquan became famous after a single battle and defeated several geniuses of the same realm. Azure Heaven Mystic did not leave after the meeting ended. Instead, he challenged Tao's sovereign and the other two after the others left. No one knew about this battle. The purple sky was covered in crimson clouds. Below was a continuous forest. The trees here were 10,000 feet tall, like straight mountains. The bark was like iron. Han Huang, Han Qing'er, and Jiang Juesher hid under a tree. Damn it! I can't go to the hidden sect meeting since I am trapped here. Han Huang cursed indignantly, unable to suppress his anger. Jiang Juesher's expression was solemn as he said, I keep feeling that something is wrong. The other party didn't kill us, and only forced us to stay here. I'm afraid he has a plan. Han Huang cursed. If not for that treasure, how could he be my match? Han Qing'er sighed. Indeed, I didn't expect him to have such a powerful Dharma treasure. It's really impressive. Assure. At this moment, Han Huang suddenly felt something and suddenly looked up. He saw a figure standing on a tree branch tens of thousands of feet away. Azure Heaven Mystic would definitely know him if he was here. Carefree Immortal. Chapter 945 Strange Calamity. Chapter 945 Strange Calamity. Who are you? What do you want? Jiang Juesher asked in a low voice. His left hand behind his waist clenched into a fist. The power of creation was already accumulating. Carefree Immortal looked down at them and smiled. Han Huang, the divine might heavenly sage's son. You were born as freedom, which is unprecedented. Impressive, truly impressive. You will dominate the chaos if there are no accidents. Han Huang glared at him and did not say anything. Carefree Immortal looked at Jiang Juesher next. You were born with great opportunities. You have stepped onto a supreme road that no one has walked before. Your fate is also an invincible path. The two of you are both invincible, but you walk side by side. One of you will die sooner or later. The person standing above the two of you is also invincible. It's not good for three invincible paths to meet. Han Huang laughed in anger and cursed. Such lies. So you trapped us to deal with my father? You really overestimate yourself. If not for that supreme treasure, you would definitely not be my match. You still want to be enemies with my father with such strength? Han Qing'er nodded and mocked. Jiang Juesher did not say anything. He waited solemnly and was prepared to attack at any time. Carefree Immortal smiled. You're still young and can't understand my words. But you have to understand that since ancient times, there has only been one strongest person. Pangu, the Tao ancestor, the primordial ancestor god, the ancient desolate divine spirit, And now the divine might heavenly sage. Do you think he can continue being the strongest? Don't you want to sit on this throne? He raised his hands. In an instant, the sky above the forest changed. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. Terrifying illusions appeared between the thunderclouds. Han Huang and the other two were nervous, not knowing what this fellow wanted to do. A half-moon red jade flew out from above the carefree immortal's head. It spun at high speed and refracted thousands of lights that illuminated the world. It's here. It's that thing again. Han Huang cursed helplessly. The carefree immortal revealed a strange smile. The half-moon red jade suddenly shattered, and the sky suddenly collapsed. The 10,000-foot-tall forest turned into dust. Han Huang and the other two felt their consciousness suffer a heavy blow, and everything fell into darkness. Immortal world, in a city of humans. Han Ju, who had retracted his Dharma treasure, was listening to an old Taoist talk about the grand occasion of the hidden sect meeting. The current immortal world was filled with the trend of cultivation. All the major events in the heavenly Tao would spread. Occasionally, one could even hear some news about the chaos. It was not easy for him to come out, so Han Ju naturally had to relax. He had already traveled the immortal world for decades and had seen too many interesting things. At this moment, Han Ju suddenly felt something and frowned. His bloodline throbbed. Something had happened to his son. Han Ju couldn't help but deduce and discovered that Han Huang, Han Qing'er, and Jiang Juesher were missing. He couldn't deduce it even with his cultivation. How strange. Han Ju had no choice but to use the derivation function. I want to know where Han Huang and the other two are now. Unable to derive karma, Han Ju frowned. He checked his interpersonal relationships and discovered that the portraits of the three of them were still there. Since they were still there, how could he not have deduced it? Was there something in the chaos that he could not predict? The blank domain has no karma. The system can't derive it, right? Yes, this word made Han Ju's heart sink. Ordinary living beings could not enter the blank domain. Could it be that the three of them were attacked? He checked the emails. Your son Han Huang was attacked by a mysterious mighty figure and was severely injured. Your daughter. The three of them were all severely injured. Han Ju asked in his mind. I want to know who attacked Han Huang. The other party has an ultimate Tao treasure that cannot be deduced. Han Ju showed a frown. His ultimate mortal robe was an ultimate Tao treasure that could defend against a blow from a Tao creator. In other words, an ultimate Tao treasure was already equivalent to the power of a Tao creator. Could it be that a Tao creator had attacked? No, he could even deduce the ninth chaos. The other party was at least not the ninth chaos, the chaotic consciousness, and the formless transcendent deity. Could it be one of the other two mysterious Tao creators? Han Ju kept asking in his mind, wanting to find a flaw. However, he could not derive the other party's karma no matter how he asked. Helpless, he could only wait. If the other party really wanted to kill Han Huang, and the other two, they should already be dead. How could they pester him when the other party wielded an ultimate Tao treasure? Han Ju was no longer in the mood to listen to the Taoist. He was about to stand up and leave when a 6 or 7-year-old child suddenly sat down in front of him. The child ignored Han Ju and picked up the food on the table to eat. Han Ju didn't stop him and only stared at him quietly. After a long time, the child was full and his mouth was covered in oil. He looked sloppy. He looked at Han Ju and said, Anomaly. If you're too sharp, disaster will arrive. Han Ju smiled and asked, What anomaly? The child picked up a jar of wine and started drinking. This jar of wine was larger than his upper body and looked quite strange. Han Ju was not in a hurry and waited patiently. After taking a sip of wine, the child's face turned red. He put down the wine jar and looked at Han Ju with drunken eyes. He smiled and said, You are an anomaly. You shouldn't exist. Your appearance has disrupted everything in the heavenly Tao and broken the inherent situation of the chaos. You have already threatened the chaos. Trouble is coming. Oh, what trouble is it? Han Ju supported his chin with his right hand and asked with interest. The child's voice was loud, but the surrounding customers did not seem to hear him. No one paid attention to them. The child grinned. Everything you care about will devour you. The more you like it now, the more hatred you will attract in the future. I've encountered it before. Junior, the next is your most important calamity. You might be able to see the entire chaos, but you might not be able to see through its essence. Hanju retracted his smile and asked, Tao Ancestor? The child stood up and left. He waved his hand and said, Tao Ancestor? That's only a name given to me by all living beings. When all living beings don't need the Tao Ancestor, he naturally won't exist. Hanju watched the child leave. He could sense that this child was only a mortal that did not have any special fate. He was probably possessed by the Tao Ancestor's will. The Tao Ancestor was indeed hidden in the heavenly Tao. He encountered the Tao Ancestor just as something happened to Han Huang, and the other two. Too strange. Hanju didn't leave and asked in his mind, what calamity is the Tao Ancestor talking about? 100 trillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. Hanju's consciousness fell into the illusion. He opened his eyes and discovered that he was standing on the Cultivate Diligently Become Immortal mountain. Countless figures floated in the sky as far as the eye could see. They were all hidden sect disciples. A majestic tree connected the world at the end of the horizon of the 100-peak immortal river. Fusang Tree. Hanju's gaze swept over. He saw Han Huang, Han Tua, Xing Hongxian, Yang Tiandong, Jiang Juesher, Dao Sovereign and so on. All his relatives and disciples looked at him with hatred. Hanju turned around and saw a figure standing behind him. It was himself. His future self wore a supreme treasure and looked indifferently at the disciples surrounding him. Chapter 946 Chaotic Will Number 1 Potential. Chapter 946 Chaotic Will Number 1 Potential. What's going on? I'm really being attacked by the people around me? Puzzled, Hanju walked to the side and started watching the battle. In any case, it was only an illusion and had yet to become reality. He was naturally not nervous. Do you really want to be my enemy? The future Hanju scanned the hidden sect disciples and asked expressionlessly. His voice entered everyone's ears clearly. Everyone trembled in fear, including Han Huang and Han Tua. Han Tua said angrily, Everyone has the right to kill chaotic evil devils. You occupied my father's body and committed evil and acted recklessly. We have to kill you even if we die. We'll take revenge for my father. His shout was like thunder, echoing nonstop. It immediately ignited everyone's hatred and they cursed. Demon, you destroyed the providence of my heavenly Tao. You deserve death. Return my master. We have to kill him today, or the chaos will be in danger. Kill him and save the chaos. The heavenly Tao sages are already outside the Tao field. He will definitely die as long as we force him to open the Tao field. Damn it. There's no need for me to keep my cultivation if I don't avenge my grandmaster today. The hidden sect had too many disciples. More than 100 million disciples flew in the air and cursed at the Cultivate Diligently Become Immortal mountain. Their curses shook the sky and the mountain shook violently. Hanju's expression still didn't change upon facing such a commotion. He suddenly smiled. It was so disdainful, and mocking Hanju muttered to himself. His future self had been possessed. Who can possess me? Tao Creator? The future Hanju laughed loudly and said, What a ridiculous chaotic will. I'll destroy you if you fools insist on believing your memories and knowledge. If I can help you rise up, I can also destroy you with a flip of my palm. So what if you are my wives and children? So what if you are my disciples and grand-disciples? Chaotic will. Do you really think I have a hard time choosing? Come. I'll let you feel my power and let you experience the fear of the despair Tao spirit, the divine authority generals, and the ancient desolate divine spirit. As the future Hanju's laughter fell, an aura that made Hanju's heart palpitate erupted. The illusion shattered. Hanju opened his eyes and pondered. The chaotic will would change the memories and knowledge of all living beings and erect him as a chaotic evil devil? It sounded impossible, but it did not seem so upon careful thought. His ultimate supreme treasure, the mystical destiny book, could do it. He had once used it to make the chaotic living beings recognize him as a chaotic fiend celestial. Since he could, why couldn't the chaos? He had used the mystical destiny book at 800,000 years old. The cooldown time was 10 million years. Now he was very close to his 10-million-year-old birthday. If that really happened, he was not afraid. Chaotic will would be destroyed if it changed the understanding of all living beings. After that, he would use the mystical destiny book to recover everything. Hanju found it ridiculous. The hidden sect alone could overturn him? The current hidden sect and the chaotic branch had more than 10 billion disciples. There were already more than 1 million Zenith Heaven Golden Immortals, 10,000 pseudo-sages, and many freedom sages and great Tao sages. They looked like colossi, but they were like paper upon facing Hanju's absolute strength. Forget it. I'll take it as it comes. I'll hide in the Tao field if I really face that situation. Hanju thought like this. Only he could teleport to the 3 Tao fields. It was absolutely impossible for the disciples in the 100-peak Immortal River to forcefully enter the 3rd Tao field. The chaotic will was only targeting Hanju. Even if he was abandoned by everyone, it wouldn't affect the lives of the other disciples. Hanju immediately stood up and left. He returned to the 100-peak Immortal River and brought Xing Hongxian and Qingwen'er back to the 3rd Tao field before continuing to cultivate. No matter what danger had already appeared, he had to take it seriously even if he was confident. It was better to be safe than sorry. He would fail as long as he was careless. Thinking of his past powerful enemies, who wasn't confident that they had a backup plan and thought that they could defeat him, Hanju wanted to constantly become stronger. He wanted his enemies to never be able to judge his strength. Outside the heavenly Tao, in front of the welcoming sacred palace, hundreds of geniuses stood in front of the door and discussed. Azure Heaven Mystic is indeed powerful. Unfortunately, Jiangyi is stronger. What cultivation technique is that? It's amazing. It's even hotter than the heavenly Tao Sun Star. However, the difference in cultivation level is too great. Otherwise, Azure Heaven Mystic might not have lost. Indeed, as expected of the heavenly sage's disciples, these 3 are all great Tao sages. Tell me, how many great Tao sages are there in the hidden sect? Could it be that all the 2nd-generation disciples are here? Hard to say. They're all sages anyway. The geniuses discussed. Tao's sovereign and Zhao Xianyuan smiled. Lao Dan's expression was very serious as he stared at Azure Heaven Mystic. The battle between Azure Heaven Mystic and Jiangyi had already ended. At this moment, Azure Heaven Mystic was in a state of enlightenment. Looking at the disheveled Azure Heaven Mystic, Jiangyi's expression was extremely complicated. Ever since he had taken the primordial pill, his bloodline had long transformed with Lao Dan's help. The divine Yang indestructible body was no longer inferior to the chaotic fiend celestial. In addition to the difference in cultivation realm, it was not surprising that he had defeated Azure Heaven Mystic. However, he actually felt a hint of danger during the battle. This kid was not simple. The heavenly Tao is lucky. Sigh. Lao Dan sighed for the 3 pure sacred world. He saw too many geniuses this time, and felt that the difference between the 3 pure sacred world and the heavenly Tao was becoming greater and greater. Tao's sovereign smiled and asked, "How talented is this child in your eyes?" Lao Dan hesitated for a moment and said, "Other than the divine might heavenly sage, I think he can be ranked first. Even my master is far inferior." The cultivation speed of the current juniors was something that the ancient existences did not dare to imagine in the past. Of course, this was also the reason why they had received the favor of their predecessors. In the past, the Tao ancestor had to figure out the cultivation after attaining the Tao. Unlike the current geniuses, who already had the path paved for them and only needed to cultivate, there was no need to figure it out or seek opportunities. With the current status of the heavenly Tao, there was an endless stream of cultivation resources. As long as they were geniuses, they only needed to cultivate and did not have to worry too much. Lao Dan's words caused the geniuses to exclaim, "So powerful?" Tao's sovereign and Zhao Xianyuan frowned. They would be furious if it were anyone else, but they were shocked since these words came from Lao Dan. There was actually such a prodigy in the heavenly Tao. Zhao Xianyuan suddenly thought of Han Huang. No matter how powerful Azure Heaven Mystic was, could he compare to Han Huang in talent? He was about to speak when a cold snort sounded behind him. "First place? I don't think so." In my opinion, his potential is inferior to mine. Everyone turned around with strange expressions. The person who spoke was the personal disciple of the heavenly Tao sage, Su Qi, Zhao Shuangquan. Zhao Shuangquan indeed had the right to be arrogant. However, Zhao Shuangquan represented the prodigies of the hidden sect, while Azure Heaven Mystic was a prodigy outside of the heavenly Tao. Sparks would definitely fly when the two of them collided. Zhao Xianyuan smiled and said, "Your potential is indeed impressive, but catch up to him first. If you can't catch up to him no matter what, it will at most mean that your talent is similar. It's impossible for you to be stronger." Chapter 947 New Era, Carefree's Destiny. Chapter 947 New Era, Carefree's Destiny. I will prove myself in the chaotic assembly. Zhao Shuangquan snorted. His gaze landed on Azure Heaven Mystic, his eyes filled with fighting spirit. Azure Heaven Mystic had already taken turns to challenge Tao Sovereign, and the other two. He was defeated without exception. The third battle was even more powerful, attracting many geniuses to watch. Although he had only seen Azure Heaven Mystic fight once, Zhao Shuangquan felt that his potential was stronger than the other parties. What was an epiphany like this? How could he be the number one prodigy if he couldn't surpass his opponent? Lao Dan sized him up, and his gaze landed on Azure Heaven Mystic. He looked back and forth, thinking about something. On the other side, in the Heavenly Tao Palace, Zhou Fan, Feng Liang, Long Hao, Su Qi, Li Xianao, and the other personal disciples gathered here. They were also watching Jiang Yi and Azure Heaven Mystic. Feng Liang sighed. Time really passed quickly. The juniors have already caught up. Zhou Fan smiled. Yes, we also considered ourselves geniuses back then, but we can't compare ourselves to these geniuses. They have all reached the sage realm, and feel that they haven't finished their apprenticeship. At that time, having an immortal emperor cultivation was already impressive. Ha ha ha. Don't you know the difference between the previous heavenly Tao and the current one? NC Li Xianao stroked his beard and laughed. Su Qi said helplessly, "My disciple's potential is indeed impressive, but he's too arrogant deep down. Azure Heaven Mystic is known as the number one prodigy of the heavenly Tao. The two of them will probably have many conflicts in the future. As their masters, we can't forcefully stop them." Zhou Fan nodded. "We can't stop them forcefully. How can the elders interfere in the matters of the younger generation? It's not a blood feud." They began to recall the past. The topic gradually landed on the chaotic assembly. Long Hao said proudly, "The heavenly Tao has so many geniuses now. Could the chaotic 10 absolutes be occupied by the heavenly Tao?" Zhou Fan shook his head. "You can't underestimate the chaos. There are many peerless geniuses in the chaos, unless they are all existences like Han Huang." Everyone sighed at the mention of Han Huang born, as freedom was enough to make any prodigy pale in comparison. Fortunately, Han Huang did not participate in the hidden sect meeting this time. Otherwise, these geniuses would definitely be depressed. How could they dare to fight here? The hidden sect meeting was a good thing. It made the hidden sect disciples understand how strong this sect is. To be honest, even I was shocked. Especially the Black Hell Chicken and the others. They are actually all at ease. It's simply ridiculous. There are more than 50 of them. Zhou Fan was speechless. The others nodded. Li Xianao smiled. Sect Master is clearly secretly nurturing them. You have to be careful not to be left behind. Long Hao spread his hands. I've already been left behind. In the past, I felt that I was very powerful. Now, I realize that my potential has already become mediocre. In the past, he was also the most talented among the Heavenly Emperor's sons. However, the world changed as time passed. He was no longer an influential figure. Zhou Fan smiled and said, "Do you want to find your father? His Majesty is very glorious in the chaos now. He has a great Tao sage as a divine general. You have to know that there are only so many great Tao sages in the chaos. If you can obtain one, you can be considered an overlord." Long Hao shook his head and said helplessly, "The father and son relationship between us has long been severed. It was my fault back then. It's fine not to mention it." Speaking of what happened before the heavenly Tao restarted, Su Qi's expression was also a little unnatural. Killing all living beings was a sin he would never forget. They were not the only ones chatting. The other Sage Dao fields were also lively. Too many geniuses had returned from this hidden sect meeting. It greatly stimulated the geniuses of the Heavenly Dao. This was a good thing for the Heavenly Dao. All the sages felt the signs of a golden age and a world of strife. In the past, it was only the Divine Might Heavenly Sage's era. Now that he had reached the top, the wave of the new era was coming ferociously. It was unstoppable. Han Huang's consciousness slowly awakened. Memories surged like a tide, causing his head to ache. He opened his eyes and saw nothing but whiteness. He turned around with difficulty. Han Qing'er and Jiang Juesher floated around. Not far away, the carefree immortal was meditating, his body surrounded by purple qi. What's going on? Han Huang's expression changed. He was shocked to discover that his dermic powers were gone, and his great Dao Dao fruit had been deprived. He was now like a mortal. He glared at carefree immortal and cursed. Dog, what did you do? Carefree immortal opened his eyes and smiled teasingly. Your natural potential is indeed very strong, far surpassing the chaotic fiend celestials. Thank you for your help. I will bring your potential to greater heights. What should a physique that surpasses the chaotic fiend celestial be called? Oh right, legend has it that the primordial fiend celestial is above the chaotic fiend celestial. Since there are no primordial fiend celestials, I'll become the primordial fiend celestial. How about that, ha ha ha. Carefree immortal laughed wantonly, causing Han Huang's eyes to turn red. Jiang Juesher also woke up at this moment. His expression also changed drastically. He stared at Carefree Immortal and asked in a low voice, "What did you do to me?" Carefree Immortal smiled and said, "You have innate great creation. Your great reincarnation creation technique already belongs to me. Coupled with the talent and creation of the two of you, I'm definitely invincible. How can that divine might heavenly sage be my match? I'm a great Tao Supreme to begin with. Give me time to fuse all your potential, and I'll definitely kill the divine might heavenly sage." Jiang Juesher's expression darkened, but he did not curse like Han Huang. Cursing could only vent, and was useless in the current situation. Carefree Immortal slowly stood up. He raised his hands and smiled. "Don't be afraid. I won't kill you. It's just that the divine might heavenly sage has severed the path of invincibility and affected too many Supremes' Tao attainment. He's an anomaly that interferes with the karma and fate of the chaos. He shouldn't exist in the first place. I'll return his potential and creation to you after I kill him." Han Huang was furious. He glared at him. If looks could kill, Carefree Immortal's body and soul would already be destroyed. Jiang Juesher asked, "Return it to us? Then what is your goal? Is it just to take revenge on my master?" Carefree Immortal shook his head. "Revenge? How is that possible? I have no grudge against him. I've already said that I want to protect the chaos. The chaos has given me the carefree creation. I've existed since chaos creation. In countless years, I've seen too many supremes and divine spirits. In every era, there will be invincible people stepping on the bones of their predecessors to attain the Tao. However, the divine might heavenly sage is different. He doesn't have the providence of the chaos. His fate is not even in the chaos. How many people has he killed along the way to become invincible? Those battle achievements are unfathomable and unreasonable. He's an anomaly. The chaos will definitely collapse if we don't eliminate him." Han Huang cursed. "If not for my father, how could the chaos be peaceful? That ancient desolate divine spirit and the great Tao divine spirit are colluding. What will happen to the chaos?" Carefree Immortal asked. "What will happen if the heavenly Tao is stronger than the chaos?" Han Huang was stunned. The Carefree Immortal's gaze was cold as he said, "The heavenly Tao is not as simple as the world. Its essence is the same as the chaos. The two providences are isolated from each other. If we let the heavenly Tao continue to become stronger, the heavenly Tao will replace the chaos sooner or later. Those ancient living beings, and the chaotic Khanate race, who can't fuse with the heavenly Tao will definitely be consigned to eternal damnation. The fundamental reason for this outcome is the divine might heavenly sage. He must die." Chapter 948 Hanju's Disappointment. Chapter 948 Hanju's Disappointment. That's only your guess. According to you, you want to sacrifice all the living beings in the heavenly Tao for the sake of saving the chaotic life forms? Do you think this is really righteous? Jiang Juesher stared at Carefree Immortal and asked coldly. Hearing this, Carefree Immortal laughed, as if he had heard the most ridiculous thing in the world. Only in the chaos can there be righteousness. Don't you understand what I just said? The heavenly Tao is different from the chaos. Heavenly Tao would have long been destroyed, if not for the Tao ancestor suppressing its development. As the Carefree Immortal spoke, he shook his head and sighed. How impressive was the Tao ancestor back then. He single-handedly pulled up the heavenly Tao and resisted the enemies of the chaos many times. Unfortunately, in the end he was still abandoned by everyone. Now that he has disappeared, who among the living beings in the heavenly Tao remembers his kindness? The Tao ancestor is the same, so is the divine might heavenly sage. Jiang Juesher was silent. Han Huang cursed. Even if you absorb my potential and creation, you're not my father's match. Just wait for death. Carefree Immortal smiled. Then let's wait and see. With that he suddenly vanished. Only Jiang Juesher, Han Huang, and Han Qinger were left in the blank domain. Han Qinger had yet to awaken. Han Huang wanted to move, but he discovered that he could only twist his body. This domain was too strange. He couldn't borrow strength, and the dermic powers in his body were already gone. Jiang Juesher was the same. He frowned and scanned his surroundings. He had never heard of such a place. He felt very uneasy. He must know that we can't escape if he dares to leave. Jiang Juesher sighed. Han Huang was extremely aggrieved and had nowhere to vent his anger. After a long while, Han Qinger woke up and learned of this from her two brothers. She was very calm. Second brother, have you forgotten the mystical power Father taught us? Summon him now. Han Qinger said in a low voice with a mysterious expression. Han Huang's expression darkened. How can I have the face to summon him? I said that I would rely on myself, but, besides, the other party is waiting to scheme against Father. Aren't I falling into his trap? Han Qinger rolled her eyes. He just obtained your potential and seen your brother's creation. He needs time to become stronger. Father won't know if we don't inform him immediately. Isn't this giving that fellow time to become stronger? Han Huang was silent. Jiang Juesher said, you can summon him before removing the mystical power. It's equivalent to informing Master that something happened. Then, you can wait for Master to visit us in our dreams. Find out the reason first, and then Master will make a decision. Han Qinger's eyes lit up. Then, she ignored Han Huang and began to use the invocation technique. She severed the mystical power feed as soon as the black vortex formed. On the other side, Han Ju was actually a little hesitant. After all, the blank domain was very likely the hiding place of the Tao creators. However, the black vortex disappeared very quickly. Han Ju immediately understood what the other party meant. It should not be interrupted. After Han Ju returned to the Taoist temple, he sent dreams from time to time, but couldn't succeed. He could try again now. He immediately sent a dream to Han Huang. As expected, he succeeded. The dream was a blank domain, hinting to Han Huang that Han Ju knew this place. However, Han Huang thought that the dream was his own thoughts, so he did not think too much about it. Seeing Han Ju, he looked ashamed and didn't know what to say. Han Ju asked, who captured you? Do you know his name? Han Huang shook his head. He didn't reveal his name. Show me his image. Han Huang immediately waved his hand. In the dream, his dermic powers had recovered. In any case, it was all fake. Han Ju noted down the Carefree Immortal's appearance. Seeing that Han Ju's expression didn't change, the grievance in Han Huang's heart immediately turned into sadness. He then told him what had happened. His potential was the thing he was most proud of. He had been a genius since he was young. He didn't dare to imagine what would happen if he became trash. That would be worse than death. Han Ju was a little surprised. Snatching people's potential and stealing their opportunities. He even had an ultimate Tao treasure. It was indeed impressive. From low to high, Dharma treasures were respectively the Heavenly Tao Numinous Treasure, Heavenly Tao Supreme Treasure, Freedom Numinous Treasure, Freedom Supreme Treasure, Great Tao Numinous Treasure, Great Tao Supreme Treasure, Ultimate Tao Treasure, and Ultimate Supreme Treasure. Among them, Great Tao Dharma Treasures could also be called Chaotic Dharma Treasures. Hanju also had an Ultimate Tao Treasure, and an even stronger Ultimate Supreme Treasure. However, there were only a few Ultimate Dharma Treasures in the chaos. The ancient desolate divine spirit, and the primordial ancestral god had never revealed them. This was a very good opponent. Hanju asked, "What's the other party's cultivation level?" He was looking forward to it. It was also a good thing that an opponent had appeared during the boring cultivation years. It could motivate him and make his life interesting. Han Huang said, "He's a great Tao Supreme. He should become stronger in the future." "What? Great Tao Supreme?" Hanju's eyes widened, scaring Han Huang. Hanju muttered, "That's it." He was so excited for nothing. Hanju looked at him and said, "Stay there. You're outside the chaos. It's a blank domain. No living being can survive or cultivate in it. It just so happens that your potential has been deprived. You can reflect on it. Not only do you need invincible potential, but you also need an invincible heart. Don't let your cultivation enslave you. This is a training you must undergo." Han Huang was deep in thought. The dream ended. Han Qing'er hurriedly asked when she saw that he woke up, "What did father say?" Han Huang replied, "He said that this is a blank domain outside the chaos, and he asked us to stay here for the time being and calm down. Treat it as training." Jiang Juesher smiled. "Since master knows where we are, it means that he's already confident." Han Qing'er wailed, "Then how long are we going to stay here?" Han Huang did not say anything else, and reflected on his father's words. Heart of invincibility. Don't be enslaved by cultivation. Inside the Taoist temple, Hanju opened his eyes. "I want to know if the person in my mind can be insta-killed by me. 1 trillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue?" Hanju hesitated. With this level? How disappointing. However, he still chose to continue when he thought of that mysterious ultimate Tao treasure. "Yes," Hanju asked in his mind. "Can I insta-kill him when he comes to me?" The carefree immortal definitely didn't know his true strength. 100 trillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? The cost had increased by 100 times. This fellow was still a little stable. After obtaining the invincible potential and creation, he still endured until he was 100 times stronger before attacking. What a pity. 100 times was not enough. Continue. Yes, Hanju heaved a sigh of relief. He asked, "Where is this person?" "The other party has an ultimate Tao treasure that cannot be deduced." How strange. He could deduce the cultivation level but not the location. It seemed that this ultimate Tao treasure was not simple. He would kill this fellow and grab the treasure when the time came. Hanju asked again, "Will the other party kill Han Huang, Han Qing'er, and Jiang Juesher before coming to find me? 100 trillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue?" Continue. No, yes, this fellow was trustworthy. He was only targeting Hanju, and not lying to Han Huang, and the other two. Chapter 949 Genius Ranking. Chapter 949 Genius Ranking. Hanju thought for a moment, and decided not to save Han Huang, and the other two for the time being. Firstly, he wanted the mysterious enemy to let down his guard, and secondly, he wanted Han Huang, and the other two to settle down. How could life be smooth sailing? If there was no major blow, how could he find his Tao heart? Hanju closed his eyes and continued cultivating. He would face two crises in the future. One was the mysterious person who had captured Han Huang, and the other two. The second was the chaotic will that was about to make a move. What Hanju had to do next was to increase his combat strength as much as possible. He would really be invincible if he could even deal with the chaos. As for the Tao creator, he would think about it in the future. 10,000 years after the hidden sect meeting ended, the entire heavenly Tao returned to normal. However, it was more lively and prosperous than before. Geniuses often battled. It made all living beings realize that the era of geniuses had arrived. Some busybodies even drew up the genius ranking. Azure Heaven Mystic was undoubtedly ranked first. However, the second place constantly changed. The sages also became busy. Fortunately, clones existed. With the current status of the heavenly Tao, the sages used clones to receive the chaotic guests, who felt that it was reasonable. Zhao Xingyuan wanted to leave with Zhao Shuangquan, but he rejected him. The reason was that Zhao Shuangquan wanted to accompany Su Qi. Although Su Qi had accepted many disciples, only Zhao Shuangquan remained. The higher one's cultivation level was, the more one understood. What Su Qi had done back then made his previous disciples feel guilty and stay away. In the circle of sages, Su Qi had always been more solitary. Other than the hidden sect disciples, he rarely interacted with other sages. Zhao Shuangquan had no parents since he was young. He only felt warmth after being accepted by Su Qi. His thoughts had been different from all living beings since he was young. He only recognized people who treated him well. As for the great kindness and righteousness that the mortal world recognized, he would never listen to them. On this day, in Su Qi's Dao Field Palace, the master and disciple were discussing the genius ranking. Master, why is he the number one on the genius ranking? Shouldn't the genius ranking look at battle achievements and potential? Just because his cultivation level is high? How old is he? He still has the cheek to stand at the top of the genius ranking. I think the sages are creating hype for him. Zhao Shuangquan said indignantly. In the heavenly Tao, not to mention 1,000,000 years, someone 100,000 years old was already old. Su Qi smiled. Actually, Azure Heaven Mystic was also your fellow disciple in the past. He was even younger than you. Later, the hidden sect realized that he was too powerful and let him leave after he grew up. The heavenly Tao also needed to show its face when participating in the chaotic assembly. The hidden sect belongs to the heavenly Tao, but the heavenly Tao is the heavenly Tao, and the hidden sect is the hidden sect. You should understand this logic. So behind Azure Heaven Mystic stands the entire heavenly Tao, including the hidden sect. Your potential is impressive, but you have to understand that nothing in this world is absolutely fair. The rules themselves are set. Zhao Shuangquan curled his lips. That made sense, but he was still unhappy. Su Qi smiled and asked, Disciple, what is your goal in the future? Fight for the title of number one prodigy? Zhao Shuangquan immediately said, Of course not. I want to be the strongest. Su Qi smiled. As strong as your grandmaster? Zhao Shuangquan nodded, his eyes filled with admiration. He had naturally heard of his grandmaster since he was young. Su Qi often talked about the stories between him and Hanju. It affected Zhao Shuangquan greatly. This was also the reason why he had a deep relationship with Su Qi. Even if Su Qi destroyed the world and was consigned to eternal damnation, Grandmaster was willing to save him and ensure his safety. If there's a chance, I'll introduce you to Master and ask him to let you cultivate beside him. It won't be difficult for you to surpass Azure Heaven Mystic in the future. Su Qi smiled with a loving expression, as if he was facing his son. Zhao Shuangquan's eyes lit up. He nodded crazily, and immediately stood up to massage his legs and back. The master and disciple continued chatting. After entering his cultivation state, time passed extremely quickly for Hanju. Another 100,000 years passed in a flash. Hanju opened his eyes and sent a dream to Su Qi. Su Qi had sent him a dream 10,000 years ago, but he was cultivating, so he ignored it. He could see at a glance that Su Qi was still in the heavenly Tao, so he was not worried that his life was in danger. The dream was the previous cultivate diligently become immortal mountain. Su Qi opened his eyes and immediately bowed when he saw that it was him. Hanju said, What is it? Su Qi immediately told him. He was here for Zhao Shuangquan. He hoped that Hanju could guide him. It would be even better if he could let him cultivate by his side. This is only a request. It's fine if you're unwilling, Su Qi added. It had been too many years. The master-disciple relationship between them had naturally become much more distant. At least, they were not as close as before, especially when the difference in cultivation level was becoming greater and greater. Hanju remained silent. It would be fine if it was any other disciple, but the other party was Zhao Shuangquan, the reincarnation of the eighth chaos. If he brought him to the Dao field, would the ninth chaos rely on Zhao Shuangquan to infiltrate the Dao field? Too dangerous. He had to consider it. However, Su Qi rarely looked for him, so he naturally could not refuse. How about this? Let him cultivate in peace. I'll teach him a mystical power in his dreams, Hanju said in a low voice. Su Qi was pleasantly surprised and hurriedly thanked him. At the same time, he heaved a sigh of relief. He was also worried that his master would refuse. Hanju smiled and said, "You have to cultivate diligently. The freedom realm is not enough." Su Qi was a chaotic fiend celestial. After so many years, it was naturally not surprising that he had attained freedom. Hanju even felt that he was a little lazy. After all, Su Qi had obtained the chaotic fiend celestial bloodline earlier than the other disciples. He should have attained the great Tao by now. I've disappointed master. Don't worry, I'll definitely attain the great Tao, Su Qi hurriedly promised. In front of Hanju, his attitude was very humble and nervous, unlike his cold attitude when facing the geniuses. The master and disciple chatted for a while before the dream ended. Hanju started to check his emails. His circle of friends became lively again. Dao's sovereign, Zhou Fan, and the other disciples began to cause trouble again. Needless to say, without them wandering in the chaos, Hanju's circle of friends would have much less fun. Hanju sent a dream to Han Qinger after reading the emails. The dream was the third Dao field. Han Qinger was pleasantly surprised to see him. She hurriedly pounced into his arms and wailed, "Father, you're finally here." Hanju's heart throbbed upon hearing his daughter's cries. Was he too strict with her? How uneasy had she been all these years? Would he regret it if she accidentally died? Hanju comforted her for a while before she calmed down. "You're already a few million years old, but you still act like a little girl," Hanju said helplessly. Han Qinger curled her lips. "I'll always be your daughter no matter how old I am." Hanju smiled and asked about the recent situation. Han Huang and the other two had been exiled to the blank domain. The carefree immortal did appear again after he left. No existence had disturbed them in the past 100,000 years. They floated in the blank domain alone and remained unchanged. Chapter 950 The Future Jiang Juesher, Two Different Matters. Chapter 950 The Future Jiang Juesher, Two Different Matters. Do you want me to fetch you? Hanju asked. 100,000 years was enough. He couldn't do anything but ask. Han Qinger chuckled. There's no need for that. I'm just acting cute with you. We're not in danger for the time being. Furthermore, second brother and senior Jiang are breaking through after breaking down. Oh, breakthrough? Tell me in detail, Hanju asked curiously. He only wanted Han Huang to settle down. He didn't expect the two of them to be able to find a cultivation technique. This was a pleasant surprise, Han Qinger said. Although second brother's potential was snatched, he regained his bloodline after 10,000 years. His bloodline seems to be able to regenerate. As for senior Jiang, he suddenly said one day that his great creation had returned after staying there for about 30,000 years. Hanju was interested. It was fine if it was just Han Huang. After all, he was a primordial fiend celestial. The primordial fiend celestial had surpassed the chaotic fiend celestial. It was not unreasonable for its bloodline to be reborn. But what was with Jiang Juesher? Great creation could be reborn? Summon me when your captor appears, Hanju said. Han Huang and Jiang Juesher recovered their potential. If the other party sensed it, they might use these two to create a force with unlimited potential. This was not good. Hanju disdained the other party in a one-on-one battle. However, if the other party used this opportunity to constantly scheme, there was no need to wait. It was best to eliminate them as soon as possible to prevent things from getting out of hand. All right, Han Qinger agreed. The father and daughter did not say anything else. Soon the dream ended. Hanju opened his eyes and asked in his mind, can Jiang Juesher's great creation be infinitely deprived and recovered? 1 quadrillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? How expensive? It was already comparable to a Tao creator. Continue. No, Hanju felt that this was reasonable. Otherwise, wouldn't that mysterious existence be able to constantly create great creation bearers like Jiang Juesher? TSK, this disciple is impressive. His future is limitless. Hanju sighed. He was suddenly interested. I want to know what Jiang Juesher will be like at his peak. Hanju asked in his mind. A quadrillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? So expensive. Tao creator? Hanju was shocked. Unlike the previous question, this question represented cultivation. Would Jiang Juesher become a Tao creator in the future? Since ancient times, there had only been 5 Tao creators. None of the chaotic fiend celestials had succeeded. Apart from being born with great providence, Jiang Juesher was also an ordinary living being. Hanju had previously deduced that Han Huang would only become a half-step Tao creator. Ever since Han Huang was born, Hanju didn't pay so much attention to Jiang Juesher. Now Han Huang had even surpassed him. He didn't expect that the future Jiang Juesher would be stronger than Han Huang. Hanju chose to continue. His consciousness entered the illusion. He opened his eyes and saw a bright mountain gate. In front of him was a long staircase as white as jade. Along the hill, tens of thousands of steps above was the peak of the mountain. A golden white throne with 9 golden dragons wrapped around it could be seen. It was a majestic sight. This was an island floating in the air. Outside was a blank domain. Countless corpses floated, forming a huge circle that surrounded the empty island. Blank domain? He's indeed a Tao creator. Hanju thought silently. Chaotic living beings could not survive in the blank domain. He looked up and saw that the golden white throne above the 10,000 steps was extremely majestic. A figure was meditating on it. Compared to the throne, the size was extremely strange. Jiang Juesher. Hanju looked at Jiang Juesher and discovered that this fellow was very similar to the future Han Huang. He was high and mighty, and his arrogance was about to soar. At this moment, a figure appeared above Hanju. To be precise, it was a head. This head had disheveled hair and 9 eyes. It was as big as a mountain range, and was filled with pressure. Hanju was secretly shocked. This terrifying aura could only be the Tao creator. The 9-eyed head smiled and said, "The danger of the chaos has been resolved according to you. That anomaly has been destroyed by the will of all living beings." Jiang Juesher opened his eyes and smiled. "Oh, just like how you treated my master back then? The so-called will of all living beings is really ridiculous." The 9-eyed head said, "The past is like smoke and mist. You should understand this logic now that you can already control the will of all living beings. Existence is the meaning. Everything that doesn't exist is meaningless. In our realms, what are the past and morals? Everything is meaningless in front of us." Jiang Juesher did not reply as if he tacitly agreed. Hanju raised his eyebrows. This future was the future after he was killed by the chaotic will? Oh, then this future could not exist. Hanju calmed down and watched the show. Jiang Juesher said again, "No one can touch Han Huang's son. Otherwise, I will destroy the chaos, even if I have to offend the 9th chaos." The 9-eyed head smiled. "We Tao creators will not target a specific living being, not even the primordial fiend celestial. You can rest assured." Jiang Juesher closed his eyes. The 9-eyed head smiled and disappeared. The illusion shattered. Hanju's consciousness returned to reality. He opened his eyes and fell into deep thought. Although the illusion was short, it was enough to show that the Tao creator was very respectful to Jiang Juesher. However, their words made him vigilant. He might die. He died under the schemes of the chaotic will. The chaotic will controlled everyone's will. I have to think of a way to become stronger. I can't slack off in the future. I have to recover my previous attitude of cultivating diligently. I can't rely on the Tao field and be careless. Hanju's eyes changed, and his Tao heart stabilized. No one can kill me, not even the will of all living beings. In the palace of the Tao field, Azure Heaven Mystic was cultivating. He suddenly opened his eyes upon hearing footsteps. He stood up and asked in a low voice, "What are you doing?" He saw Carefree Immortal standing in the hall, staring at him with a smile. The Carefree Immortal wore a white robe and was surrounded by a purple aura. He was rather sinister. Carefree Immortal smiled and said, "Don't be nervous. Don't worry. I've already isolated this palace. No one can hear our conversation." Azure Heaven Mystic was furious. "Let's not talk nonsense. If you want to fight, fight. I can't be with you, much less deal with the divine might heavenly sage with you." Hearing this, The carefree immortal was still calm as he smiled and said, "The divine might heavenly sage will definitely die. If you participate, you will have great merit and your name will spread throughout the chaos." Azure Heaven Mystic cursed, "Get lost. You want me to deal with the divine might heavenly sage? Isn't that treachery?" He immediately waved his palm, but the carefree immortal suddenly appeared in front of him and grabbed his wrist before his arm could straighten. Azure Heaven Mystic widened his eyes. Carefree immortal smiled. "I forgot to tell you. My cultivation level has already surpassed the chaos. No one in the entire chaos is my match, including the divine might heavenly sage. It's just that I'm carefree, and it's not convenient for me to personally take action. In addition, even if you refuse soon, all living beings will eliminate the divine might heavenly sage. You will too at that time. Perhaps you can't understand now, but this is the truth. I only think highly of you, so I'll give you a chance. Choosing to do it and being forced to do it are two different things." Chapter 951 Reaching the Tao Creator Realm. Chapter 951 Reaching the Tao Creator Realm. "What do you mean? Why should I kill him?" Azure Heaven Mystic frowned and shook off his hand. His fear of the carefree immortal deepened. After living for so long, the carefree immortal was the existence he could not see through the most, and was also the most dangerous. Carefree immortal said, "The divine might heavenly sage is an anomaly and doesn't belong to the chaos. He stepped on many invincible supremes and severely affected the fate of the chaos." He spoke slowly, just like he had said to Han Huang and the other two. Azure Heaven Mystic fell silent. He was not convinced by the carefree immortal, but he did not know how to escape. Since the other party had said so, he definitely had to make a choice and not beat around the bush. As long as he rejected him, it would definitely be a life and death battle. The move just now was enough to show the difference in strength. Carefree immortal stared at him and said, "Other than you, I also want to support other geniuses. This batch of geniuses will not be controlled by everyone's will. The meaning behind this is great. It means that you will transcend all living beings and see through the true meaning of the world. It won't be difficult for you to become a god in the future." Azure Heaven Mystic took a deep breath and said, "I thank you for your appreciation, but if I accept it, the path I want to take will be missing and will never be repaired, so I still refuse. Come, I know you won't let me go. I only want to follow my heart even if I die. The heavenly Tao nurtured me, so I have to fight for the heavenly Tao." The smile on Carefree Immortal's face vanished and his eyes turned cold. He said coldly, "In that case, don't blame me for being impolite. I can give you the divine authority, and I can also take it back. Not only will I take it back, but I will also snatch your potential." Azure Heaven Mystic laughed. "How can you snatch my talent?" Boom! A terrifying aura erupted from Azure Heaven Mystic's body. The divine light of the supreme rule burst out, causing his long hair to flutter. Carefree Immortal narrowed his eyes and muttered, "This aura? No. Impossible." Blank domain. Han Huang, Jiang Juesher, and Han Qing'er were still floating, but more and more corpses gathered around them. Han Qing'er said helplessly, "Why isn't that fellow here yet?" Unlike Han Huang and Jiang Juesher, who could still continue to become stronger, it was completely torturous for her to stay here. Her cultivation level could not increase. Jiang Juesher opened his eyes and said, "I've already developed a perception towards the blank domain. He has indeed never appeared. It seems that my creation and Junior Huang's potential are not so easy to absorb." Han Huang opened his eyes and smiled proudly. "Of course. I suspect that since we've already recovered, the potential and creation that he absorbed have also returned. He might have already suffered a backlash and is feeling uncomfortable." Han Qing'er asked, "Then should we ask Father to fetch us?" Jiang Juesher said, "Let's wait a little longer. This is a good opportunity. This person is too dangerous. We can't let him grow. If he can snatch our potential, he can snatch the potential of others. If our potential accumulates, the consequences will be unimaginable." He had obtained his current achievements because of the overlapping potential of reincarnation. He was also afraid that an enemy like him would appear. Furthermore, the carefree immortal did not need reincarnation. It was even more exaggerated than him to forcefully strip away his potential. Han Huang did not say anything, but his eyes were filled with anger. In the past 100,000 years, other than cultivating again, his anger had also been accumulating. This matter alerted Han Ju. He only relaxed for a short period of time and was more ashamed. Before leaving the Dao field, he had promised all sorts of things that he would definitely not cause trouble. He had even arrogantly said that not many existences in the chaos were his match. He had indeed defeated countless experts in the heavenly court. This was the only time he had failed. He couldn't accept it even if it was only once. The anger of revenge had already occupied Han Huang's heart, but he did not show it. Jiang Juesher and Han Qing'er did not sense it. Jiang Juesher looked at him and asked, "Junior Huang, how's your cultivation? Have you recovered your great Dao?" Han Huang replied, "I've recovered, but it's not enough." Jiang Juesher frowned. He suddenly felt that something was wrong with him. "Junior Huang, are you all right? Did something go wrong with your cultivation?" Jiang Juesher asked with concern. Han Huang smiled. "It's fine. Senior, don't think too much. I'm just considering a mystical power. I have to deal with him well, if that fellow appears later." Jiang Juesher smiled and nodded. "I also have this plan. We have to stand up wherever we fall. At this moment, you want to deal with me?" Carefree Immortal's voice sounded, his tone cold. The three of them turned around in shock, and saw a figure flying over from the depths of the blank domain like a ghost, leaving behind afterimages. Carefree Immortal stopped, but the three of them widened their eyes in shock. A second head actually grew out of Carefree Immortal. This head was actually Azure Heaven Mystic, but Jiang Juesher and the other two could not recognize it. A cold and mocking smile hung on the Carefree Immortal's face. Azure Heaven Mystic's expression was cold and heartless. The two faces were side by side, making people feel extremely ridiculous. Jiang Juesher asked in a low voice, "Whose face is this? Did you absorb his potential?" Han Qing'er secretly used the invocation technique. Carefree Immortal smiled and said, "The #1 prodigy of the heavenly Dao. This kid is not simple. He almost devoured me. However, with his creation, I have already surpassed the great Dao Supreme Realm and the previous ancient desolate divine spirit. In other words, you can't deal with me." His gaze landed on Han Qing'er and he smiled. "You're summoning your father, right? It's just nice. I'll surpass those existences above the chaos if I absorb him." Han Qing'er trembled. Han Huang snorted. "Do you know my father's cultivation level?" Carefree Immortal smiled and asked, "Do you know what the cultivation level of the great Dao Supreme is?" The three of them were stunned. Seeing this, the Carefree Immortal laughed wantonly, his tone filled with disdain. "I'm not sure what the cultivation level of the great Dao Supreme is. Do enlighten me." A voice came from the black vortex behind Han Qing'er. Divine light came from the vortex, and Han Ju slowly stepped out. He activated all his supreme treasures, causing his aura to reach its peak. Han Huang and Jiang Juesher were shocked. They had never felt such a powerful aura. The smile on Carefree Immortal's face gradually disappeared. He stared at Han Ju and said, "Divine Might Heavenly Sage, it's really better to see you than hear about you." Han Ju saw Azure Heaven Mystic, but he didn't show it. "Wow. You even dare to touch the karma of the Dao Creator. If you don't die, who will? Chaotic Consciousness, you owe me this karma." Han Ju smiled and asked, "Who's behind you?" Azure Heaven Mystic shrugged. "No one. I just saw a trace of fate." Han Ju sighed. "That's all." "What, you're not satisfied? I'm sighing for you." Han Ju smiled and his eyes narrowed. Jiang Juesher and the other two moved behind him. Carefree Immortal smiled and said, "I didn't only absorb the bloodlines of these three people. I also absorbed the bloodlines of more than 100 geniuses and the power of several chaotic fiend celestials. The current me has already surpassed the great Dao Supreme Realm and reached the realm of a Dao Creator." Chapter 952 Immortal Fate, Strongest in the Chaos. Chapter 952 Immortal Fate, Strongest in the Chaos Dao Creator? Han Ju almost wanted to laugh. If not for him asking the system as quickly as possible if he could insta-kill this person, he might really be shocked. However, He had spent 100 trillion years, knowing that he could insta-kill the other party. This meant that the other party was not a true Tao creator. This fellow was still arrogant. After all, he had never come into contact with a true Tao creator. Once his cultivation level increased, it was indeed easy to misjudge. Divine Might Heavenly Sage, have you heard of the Tao creator realm? A Tao creator can create everything, and is not restricted by the chaotic rules. He can freely wander in this blank domain. Here, the chaotic will can't harm the Tao creator. Carefree Immortal raised his arms, and said with an intoxicated expression. Hanju asked, "Then if I can also wander here, won't I be considered a Tao creator?" Carefree Immortal's expression froze. Han Qing'e laughed. "Father, you scared him." Jiang Juesher and Han Huang also smiled. Carefree Immortal sneered. "It's not that simple. In that case, attack. Let me experience the Divine Might Heavenly Sage's power." Shadows appeared above Hanju's head, and quickly disappeared. This was the Dharma Idol fusion technique. Carefree Immortal was not in a hurry to attack. Instead, he took out a half-moon red jade. This red jade emitted light, and froze this blank domain. He wanted Hanju to be unable to escape. Carefree Immortal raised his arms, and his body suddenly exploded, turning into countless purple chi. Figures struggled to come out of the purple chi with all their might. They were sinister and terrifying. The purple chi transformed into a terrifying giant shadow that was 10 million feet tall. Its figure was like a Carefree Immortal, and was no longer double-headed. There was only one head of the Carefree Immortal, and the Azure Heaven Mystic appeared in the chest of the purple chi giant shadow. Unlike the other struggling figures, its eyes were closed as if it had fallen asleep. Its body undulated with the purple chi. The half-moon red jade flew up and landed between the Carefree Immortal's brows, transforming into a third eye. "What is he doing?" Han Qing'e asked nervously. Hanju didn't answer. He couldn't be bothered by the Carefree Immortal's actions. It gave him time to fuse with the fiend celestial Dharma idols. He blocked the black vortex to prevent the Carefree Immortal from using it to infiltrate the third Tao field. Ha ha ha. Divine Might Heavenly Sage, do you feel it? This vast aura. This is the Tao Creator's Tao power. I admire you very much. Unfortunately, you are an anomaly. If the will of all living beings wants you dead, I can't let you live. Go to hell. The Carefree Immortal laughed wildly and slapped at him. His 10 million foot tall body transformed into a purple storm that swept towards Hanju. The surrounding corpses instantly turned into dust. Jiang Juesher and Han Huang were moved. Han Qing'er's face was pale. What a terrifying pressure. They had never felt such a powerful force. This was even stronger than Hanju's aura when he appeared. They couldn't help but look at him. Hanju's back was facing them. No matter how the wind and waves tried to sweep them, his body didn't tremble at all. The three of them suddenly felt at ease. With Hanju in front, they felt infinitely safe. How arrogant. Hanju's voice sounded. Unlike before, it was cold and serious, filled with killing intent. The 3,000 fiend celestial Dharma idols gathered and formed the ultimate origin power in front of him. The ultimate origin heaven seal emitted endless red light, and crushed forward with an unstoppable force. Extremely fast. Jiang Juesher and the other two felt a red light flash in front of them. The terrifying purple aura storm instantly exploded. Everything in front of them vanished, leaving only the blank domain. The ultimate origin heaven seal swept past, leaving only a head behind. The geniuses he had fused with were all sucked away by the ultimate origin heaven seal. Carefree Immortal's eyes widened. His face trembled and his mouth twitched. Impossible. I'm a Tao creator. Impossible. Carefree Immortal said in disbelief. Seeing him like this, Jiang Juesher and the other two felt extremely comfortable. Han Qing'er smiled. Tao creator? That's it. She mocked the Carefree Immortal impudently. Carefree Immortal was furious. His eyes turned red as he cursed. How dare you humiliate me? You're courting death. He condensed his body again, and raised his hand to pull the half-moon red jade off his forehead. He crushed it, and the half-moon red jade turned into dust and entered his body. He suddenly disappeared. Han Qing'er felt a terrifying killing intent, and was so frightened that her face turned pale. Hanju suddenly raised his right hand. The carefree immortal revealed his true form, and his throat was grabbed by his right hand. You! Carefree immortal widened his eyes in shock. He gritted his teeth and asked, "You're also a Tao creator? Your dermic powers?" Hanju glanced at him from the corner of his eye and said, "I don't know what a Tao creator is. I only know that you shouldn't hurt my children and disciples, much less capture the juniors of the chaos. I don't know your name either, but it's not important." Boom! Carefree immortal suddenly turned to dust. An ultimate origin heaven seal flew out from Hanju's palm and quickly expanded. At first glance, the carefree immortal seemed to have been shattered by the ultimate origin heaven seal, scaring Jiang Juesher and the other two. Hanju quickly took away the half-moon red jade that had just recovered. This was an ultimate Tao treasure. He had to snatch it. Hanju glanced at Jiang Juesher and the other two. He used the ultimate origin power to move them into the black vortex and threw them back to the third Tao field. He then prepared to return. "Heavenly Sage, wait!" A voice drifted over. Hanju glanced over and saw a mighty figure speeding over. That was Holy Mother of Order. Hanju had an extremely deep impression of her. An ancient deity above the great Tao divine spirit had once used a drop of water to pierce through the heavenly Tao. She had frightened him at that time. "Who are you?" Hanju asked. Even if he knew, he had to pretend not to. The Holy Mother of Order stopped and said, "I am the chaotic great Tao divine spirit, the Holy Mother of Order. I was nearby and happened to witness the heavenly sage killing the carefree immortal. I want to talk to you about the carefree immortal. He's not dead yet." "Carefree immortal? The name of that thing just now?" Nan Hanju asked. "Then where is he hiding?" He did not receive any hatred notifications from the carefree immortal, nor could he sense his aura. He thought that this fellow had already died. The Holy Mother of Order said, "The carefree immortal was one of the first living beings in the chaos. In order to be eternal, he sacrificed his cultivation and fused into the will of the chaos to obtain the fate of freedom and immortality. He will appear every long era. His appearance means that the will of the chaos is about to revive. I guess the will of the chaos wants to target you. The last time the will of the chaos awakened, it made the Tao ancestor the enemy of all living beings." Hanju showed a frown. The Holy Mother of Order said, "I want to remind the heavenly sage that the chaotic will is the strongest existence. You can't fight it head-on. The heavenly Tao Pangu and the Tao ancestor have both failed." Hanju narrowed his eyes and asked, "Could it be that this was the reason Pangu was besieged by 3,000 chaotic fiend celestials?" "That's right. Although Pangu had yet to reach the great Tao realm at that time, the chaotic will only targeted the strongest in the chaos. He would either die or submit," the Holy Mother of Order replied, her tone unchanged. Chapter 953 Creation Heavens Chosen. Chapter 953 Creation Heavens Chosen. Countless years have passed ever since the creation of the chaos. Pangu and the Tao ancestor have only sat on the supreme and invincible first throne. There were no less than 30 strongest people in their era. Facing the will of the chaos, all of them failed. Some died, turning into an auspicious evil. Their grudges have always wanted to take revenge on the chaos. Some have transformed into Tao devils and given their descendants inheritances to awaken their intelligence. This is the reason why the ancient desolate divine spirit was born. However, it has yet to become the strongest. If not for your appearance, the strongest person in this era should have been the ancient desolate divine spirit. He would have defeated the primordial ancestor god and the Tao ancestor and raised the strongest realm of the chaos. However, your appearance changed fate and attracted the chaotic will's attention. The Holy Mother of Order's tone was extremely calm, but it outlined an epic scene for him. Hanju asked, "So Holy Mother, you suggest that I surrender?" "I can," the Holy Mother of Order said. "After becoming the strongest in the chaos, how can you let this go? You can fight him, but don't become a demon. If you can't win, it's a good thing to leave your life intact. Only existence is meaningful. Since ancient times, more than 30 supreme experts have failed. All those who have lowered their heads are existences who have transcended the great Tao." Hanju remained silent. What nonsense! I can't just give up. Hanju suddenly understood. The chaotic will was a calamity for the aspiring Tao creators. There would be no chance to become one as long as he failed. No wonder the chaos had been born for so long, and only had 5 Tao creators. Hanju asked, "Is the Tao creator realm mentioned by the carefree immortal really the realm after the great Tao supreme realm?" Reem, the Holy Mother of Order, said faintly, "There is indeed such a legend, but it's illusory and difficult to tell if it's true or not. I think that the great Tao supreme realm is already the end of the road. In the future, it's only a difference in strength, not cultivation realm." Hanju nodded. "Thank you for your reminder, Holy Mother. Goodbye." With that, he turned around and entered the black vortex. The black vortex shrank until it disappeared. The Holy Mother of Order stood quietly in place, thinking about something. In the Taoist temple of the third Tao field, Jiang Juesher and the other 2 heaved a sigh of relief when they saw him. Han Qinger asked excitedly, "Is that fellow completely dead?" Hanju said, "No, he will revive in the future. He has fused with the chaotic will, and is considered undying." The expressions of the 3 changed drastically. Hanju said, "You can leave. It's fine if you want to continue wandering the chaos. The carefree immortal can't be revived for the time being. Even if he is, the focus will be on me. It was good to go out and adventure, lest the chaotic will erupt, and these guys find trouble with him from the interior of the Tao field." The 3 of them immediately bowed and left. Hanju waved his hand and released all the geniuses in the ultimate origin heaven seal outside the heavenly Tao. Chaotic consciousness has a favorable impression of you. Current favorability, 1 star. Hanju was stunned upon seeing this notification. Then he smiled in relief. His performance was not in vain. Hanju had always said that he carried the banner of righteousness for the sake of all living beings in the chaos, ever since he faced the ancient desolate divine spirit. Now that he had saved the prodigy nurtured by the chaotic consciousness, he naturally could obtain a favorable impression. Hanju felt that his actions were impeccable. It could be said that he was an anomaly, but it could not be said that his sins were grave. The fact that he has a favorable impression of me means that the chaotic will has nothing to do with him. It seems that the Tao creators really won't care about the chaos, unless I want to destroy it. Hanju thought silently. However, he remembered that the chaotic consciousness cared especially about the dark forbidden lord. What was the reason? He thought for a moment, and felt that he could not answer it. Even he, the divine might heavenly sage, had been witnessed by others and knew that it was in the heavenly Tao. However, the dark forbidden lord was different. He was too mysterious. I'll curse the carefree immortal after some time, and see if I can weaken the chaotic will. Hanju took out the half-moon red jade. This jade was as big as a dagger. One could feel a soul-chilling cold as they held it. Hanju first used absolute purification to prevent himself from being plotted against. Absolute purification required time. He cultivated and waited. Heavenly Tao in a palace. Azure Heaven Mystic sat down with an extremely ugly expression. He didn't know who had saved him, but he clearly remembered his defeat at the carefree immortal's hands. He had been deprived of his bloodline in creation. The pain was engraved in his heart. He was not afraid. Like Han Huang, his heart was filled with endless anger. There can be no next time. Azure Heaven Mystic clenched his fists in his sleeves. At this moment, a voice sounded in his mind. It's not your fault. It's just that the other party doesn't care about seniority, or the difference in cultivation level. Azure Heaven Mystic was not surprised and cursed. But I'm not strong enough in the end. If it were the Divine Might Heavenly Sage, how could he be like this? The Divine Might Heavenly Sage's Tao field is a great creation. He has always been hiding and cultivating. Even if you want to be like him, you don't have the great creation Tao field to protect you. The voice in his mind calmed him down. This voice appeared when Azure Heaven Mystic fused with the great Tao Providence Divine Authority. It claimed to be his Tao heart, and guided him out of the maze. Azure Heaven Mystic asked, "Why didn't you help me when Carefree Immortal forced me? This is a calamity you must pass. Facing an invincible force, your choice will decide your Tao. This time, you choose not to submit. Your path of invincibility will be even more determined." The voice in his mind also calmed Azure Heaven Mystic down. No matter what had happened had already happened. He could only choose and control the future. Azure Heaven Mystic looked at his right palm. The great Tao Providence Divine Authority was still there. One day, I won't be in such a sorry state anymore. Tens of thousands of years later, Hanju, who was cultivating, was interrupted by the notification. Detected that you are 10 million years old, and your life has taken another step forward. You have the following choices. 1. Exit seclusion immediately, and open the primordial chaos to slaughter all living beings in the chaos. You can obtain a great Tao fragment, a primordial fragment, a creation spirit stone, a supreme treasure, a heavenly Tao spirit stone, and a great Tao field guard. 2. Cultivate in a low-profile manner and maintain your original intention. You can obtain a great Tao fragment, a primordial fragment, a creation spirit stone, and a new function of the system. Hanju showed a frown. Creating the primordial chaos required him to slaughter all living beings in the chaos? He suddenly felt that the chaotic will was right to target him. Hanju chose the second option, not because he felt that he was on the wrong path, but because the first option was too dangerous. You chose to cultivate in a low-profile manner, and obtained a great Tao fragment, a primordial fragment, a creation spirit stone, and a supreme treasure. Congratulations on activating a new function of the system. Creation Heavens Chosen. Creation Heavens Chosen. The primordial world has countless great opportunities. You, who have inherited the primordial inheritance, can activate the Creation Heavens Chosen. Every 10 million years, a random innate great creation will appear among your children. You can decide when to activate the Heavens Chosen. You can also accumulate the number of attempts. Chapter 954 New Era of Chaos. Chapter 954 New Era of Chaos. You currently have a Creation Heavens Chosen attempt. Do you want to activate it? Innate Great Creation. Could it be an existence like Jiangju Escher? Hanju's eyes lit up. This was a good function, and it only appeared among his children, and would not fall into the hands of outsiders. However, it was not impossible for his children to betray him. He had to be cautious. It was best not to do it for the time being. He had to accumulate it for now. The chaotic will would target him at any time. If he used it now, the Creation Heavens Chosen would definitely become his enemy. I'll keep it for now. I don't have many children currently anyway. Hanju smiled and made a decision. Speaking of which, he had few children. Han Huang and Han Qing'er had yet to marry. Han Tua focused on cultivating, and had not found a new wife for more than 9 million years. His only hope was Han Yu. This fellow was also alone, but he had a good relationship with the female disciple beside him. However, his feelings for her were ambiguous. Could it be that the Han family has to rely on me to prosper? Hanju was speechless just thinking about it. He decided to stop thinking and resume cultivating. He had to survive the calamity of the chaotic will. He closed his eyes and continued cultivating. Jiangju Escher and the other two left the third Tao field less than a year after they were saved. They returned to the heavenly court and began to cultivate in seclusion. It was the same for Azure Heaven Mystic. The other geniuses devoured by the carefree immortal returned home. As a result, the heavenly Tao captured many allies. After the sages asked about it, they guessed that the divine might heavenly sage had saved these geniuses. Therefore, they were relieved and continued to keep themselves busy. Time passed quickly. 100,000 years passed. Hanju opened his eyes and smiled. His cultivation level increased again. This feeling was not bad. He was just afraid that his cultivation level could not increase. Hanju still couldn't figure out the realm of the Tao creator for the time being. This meant that he was still far from it. Now he could only place his hopes on the primordial world and the ultimate origin fiend celestial. He first observed the primordial world. Currently, more than 200 chaotic fiend celestials had been born in the primordial world from the fiend celestial chi. Their cultivation levels were still shallow. They each hid in a corner and cultivated. Only 2 chaotic fiend celestials had met and fought, and became brothers. Hanju discovered that the chaotic fiend celestials were combative, but it was not to the extent of fighting to the death. This made him relieved. As long as these chaotic fiend celestials did not kill each other, they could control the primordial world well. The primordial world was still expanding and contained more and more nebulous primordial chi. It was strange. Hanju had already become the ultimate origin fiend celestial. The primordial world should have also become the ultimate origin world. Why had the nebulous primordial chi not transformed yet? Could it be that it had yet to reach the level of transformation? But this made sense. His bloodline could directly transform, but the world was different. The rules were there, and the evolution process was complicated. It was understandable. Hanju checked the emails after observing the primordial world. Your good friend Azure Heaven Mystic has received guidance from your good friend Chaotic Consciousness. His cultivation has increased greatly. Your son Han Tua has comprehended a great Tao mystical power. His cultivation has increased greatly. Your disciple Zhou Fan was attacked by an inauspicious evil. X907922. Your good friend Foolish Sword Sage established the Sword Tao River. His providence has increased greatly. Your good friend, the ultimate god of punishment, discussed the Tao with a mysterious mighty figure and comprehended the true meaning of chaos. Your good friend Huang Zuantian used the great Tao Providence Divine Authority to forge a great Tao Supreme Treasure. His providence has increased greatly. Your good friend Li Daokong has entered the bottom of the chaos. Your son Han Huang has entered the chaotic river of destiny. The recent circle of friends was very lively. There were attacks, opportunities, epiphany, new map unlocking, and so on. The chaos was vast, and there were too many unknown places. Hanju watched with relish. Life seemed to have returned to normal. It was unknown when the chaotic will would appear. In another 700,000 years, the ultimate supreme treasure, the mystical destiny book, would be usable again. He hoped that the chaotic will would not make him wait too long, lest he wasted the mystical destiny book's time. Hanju entered cultivation again, after reading the emails. If he entered seclusion again, he could curse the carefree immortal. It was no longer a secret that he would enter seclusion for 100,000 years every time. Cursing now would easily expose his identity. Although he could also associate it with him, he was not that sure. On the other side, in a domain of the chaos, in the heavenly court, Numinous Palace, the evil heavenly emperor held a jade slip in his hand and used his divine sense to check the information inside. He asked, "Is Divine General Han still in seclusion?" An old immortal in the hall nodded. He has been in seclusion ever since he returned hundreds of thousands of years ago. He has clearly been agitated. Your Majesty, should you visit him to prevent him from going berserk? Han Huang had joined the heavenly court for hundreds of thousands of years and had long proved himself. He was now the leader of the heavenly generals, and his status was second only to the evil heavenly emperor. The evil heavenly emperor smiled. There's no need. He's born as freedom. It's impossible for him to suffer from chi deviation. Just watch. His path of invincibility will begin when he comes out of seclusion. We will witness the rise of the second divine might heavenly sage. No, he's even stronger than the divine might heavenly sage. The old immortal hurriedly congratulated him. The evil heavenly emperor laughed. At this moment, the war Buddha suddenly flew in and stopped beside the old immortal. He bowed and said, "Your Majesty, there's chaos in the Azure Heaven Great World. The Realm Lord can't stop it." He asked the heavenly court for a great Tao sage's assistance. The evil heavenly emperor opened his eyes and said, "Someone in the Azure Heaven Great World has attained the great Tao. There doesn't seem to be a new great Tao sage recently, right?" The war Buddha replied, "It's not a great Tao sage, but that being is invincible among freedom sages. It needs a great Tao sage to take action." The evil heavenly emperor said in a low voice, "Pass down my orders. Go invite Divine General Juesher to quell the chaos." Yes. The war Buddha immediately left. The evil heavenly emperor was deep in thought. The old immortal asked, "What is your Majesty worried about?" The evil heavenly emperor said, "More and more great Tao sages and invincible existences rose up among those in the freedom realm recently. I keep feeling that something big is about to happen." The old immortal frowned and fell into deep thought. The evil heavenly emperor looked at the blue sky outside the numinous palace and muttered to himself, "What is happening? If the chaotic new era you mentioned was not started by him, who was it?" 100,000 years passed quickly. Hanju opened his eyes and took out the Book of Misfortune. Black light burst out and shone on his face, making him look sinister. The dark forbidden lord appeared. Hanju touched the Book of Misfortune in fascination and muttered, "It's your turn again. You must be anxious." The Book of Misfortune trembled slightly, as if responding to him. Hanju directly started cursing the carefree immortal. He found the target immediately without the ultimate Tao treasures cover. "I feel it." Hanju's body trembled, and he started cursing with all his might. 5 days passed quickly. His lifespan was deducted. Carefree immortal was a great Tao supreme after all. He definitely could not be cursed to death. Hanju had to spend his origin lifespan. Hanju opened his attributes panel and stared at the constantly jumping lifespan numbers. He was a little excited. It had been a long time since he felt such excitement. Nostalgic. Hanju's eyes turned ruthless. He was not greedy for such excitement. Since he wanted to curse, he had to curse to death. Once the dark forbidden lord attacked, the target would either die or be crippled. Chapter 955 Supreme Rules Break. Chapter 955 Supreme Rules Break. 10 billion years of lifespan. 100 billion years. A trillion years. 10 trillion years. Hanju cursed with all his might and stared at his attributes panel. Because the carefree immortal did not hate him, he did not know about the other party's situation. In any case, Hanju decided to give the carefree immortal 10 quadrillion years of lifespan. It sounded like a lot, but it was only an unobservable small number. After all, carefree immortal was an undying and eternal existence. He had to spend a lot if he wanted to succeed. 100 trillion years. A quadrillion years. 10 quadrillion years. Hanju suddenly felt something and suddenly looked up. He discovered that the 7 supreme rules above the 3,000 great Tao began to shake violently, like violent dragons and snakes. As expected, the carefree immortal fused into the chaotic will, which was hidden in the 7 supreme rules. Perhaps the gathering of the 7 supreme rules was the chaotic will. Hanju stared at the 7 supreme rules and continued cursing. At this moment, figures appeared under the 7 supreme rules. Among them were the ultimate god of punishment, the Holy Mother of Order, and Laozi. Hanju did not recognize the others. From their auras, they were all great Tao supremes. Soon, the foolish sword sage joined in the fun under the supreme rules. "What's going on?" A mighty figure frowned and asked. Laozi said, "There must be karma for the supreme rules to react so violently. However, we don't see anyone wanting to touch the supreme rules. In other words, the problem is inside the supreme rules." The Holy Mother of Order said, "The supreme rules can't riot for no reason. Something must have happened." Everyone looked at the ultimate god of punishment. After all, the ultimate god of punishment was the divine spirit's leader. He was the lord of chaos on the surface and held the highest authority. The ultimate god of punishment did not say anything, but stared at the supreme rules. A mighty figure suddenly asked, "Why isn't the divine might heavenly sage here?" The foolish sword sage said angrily, "Does he usually come out? No one is causing trouble for him now. He won't come out even if the chaos collapses." The mighty figures felt that it made sense. This was already the consensus of the chaos. The ultimate god of punishment had already experienced the primordial heavenly prison. No matter what he guessed, he definitely had to protect Hanju. They only heard him say, "It has nothing to do with the divine might heavenly sage." Back then, the power that the ancient desolate divine spirit borrowed from the supreme rule was easily defeated by him. This means that the supreme rule is not irresistible to the divine might heavenly sage. He might even look down on it. There are more than a few great Tao supremes in the chaos. The Holy Mother of Order said, "Previously, the carefree immortal captured many geniuses and was killed by the divine might heavenly sage in the blank domain. Perhaps the carefree immortal wants to revive and is absorbing the power of the supreme rules." The other mighty figures revealed interested expressions and began to ask about it. The Holy Mother of Order told them everything she knew. Hanju was still cursing. He had heard the words of the foolish sword sage, and the ultimate god of punishment, so he did not appear. Indeed, there would be a problem if he went out now. After all, it would only be his clone even if he went. Hanju's lifespan was still decreasing. 1 quintillion years. 10 quintillion. 100 quintillion years. 1 sextillion years. 10 sextillion years. 100 sextillion years. Hanju looked up and saw that one of the supreme rules had broken. His heart trembled. Could he have cursed the supreme rules to ruin? I want to know if the supreme rule will be destroyed if I continue cursing. A quadrillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. No. Hanju secretly heaved a sigh of relief. The supreme rules were still stable. Then I won't hold back. Carefree immortal, you must die. His lifespan continued to decrease. The number at the back jumped very quickly, making him inexplicably nervous. The breaking of the supreme rules made the mighty figures panic. The ultimate god of punishment could not maintain his calm. The Book of Misfortune had long been upgraded to an ultimate Tao treasure. It surpassed the power of the great Tao supreme realm and caused terrifying destruction. It had to be known that this was the first time the supreme rules had broken since they were created. Ordinary ultimate Tao treasures naturally could not hurt the supreme rules. But this also contained Hanju's ultimate origin power and 100 sextillion years of origin lifespan. The power combined was enough to curse any great Tao supreme to death. What should we do? The foolish sword sage asked. He was very nervous. Could another calamity be on the way? The other mighty figures began to plan. They used their dermic powers to repair the supreme rules, but they suffered a backlash. The power of the curse. The ultimate god of punishment was moved and said with a trembling voice. The word curse made everyone think of a name. A mighty figure's expression darkened. He gritted his teeth and said, Dark Forbidden Lord. I didn't expect this fellow to be so strong. Previously, the Dark Forbidden Lord said that he wanted to deal with it when the ancient desolate divine spirit appeared. So it was not a lie. But the ancient desolate divine spirit has already died. Why did he touch the supreme rules? Haven't you heard of anything? When darkness descends, it will be when the Dark Forbidden Lord appears. There's a high chance that he wants to destroy the supreme rules first and make the chaos lose order, as if it has fallen into darkness. Fellow Taoist, you are right. What should we do if it's really the Dark Forbidden Lord? All the transcendent existences above the chaotic living beings fell into uneasiness. On the other side, Hanju was still cursing. Not long after, he consumed 500 sextillion years of his lifespan. A shrill roar suddenly sounded from the broken supreme rules. No! The voice's owner was the carefree immortal. Most of the mighty figures below the supreme rules knew the carefree immortal and instantly recognized his voice. It's indeed the carefree immortal. The Dark Forbidden Lord is cursing the carefree immortal? A mighty figure frowned and asked. The Holy Mother of Order said, Impossible. The carefree immortal has no karma. No curse can hurt him. We can't even deduce him. How can the Dark Forbidden Lord curse him? The ultimate god of punishment narrowed his eyes. Could it be that the carefree immortal is the Dark Forbidden Lord? We can't deduce the two can't completely by karma. You have to know that even the karma of the divine might heavenly sage can be traced. In the entire chaos, only the karma of these two has no traces. The foolish sword sage frowned. It's indeed possible. The scream did not last long before it suddenly stopped. Hanju's curse missed after that. He had consumed 600 sextillion years of his lifespan. It had yet to reach its target. That's it. When Hanju's curse stopped, the broken supreme rule began to automatically mend. Seeing this, all the mighty figures heaved a sigh of relief. The Holy Mother of Order said, Looks like it should be the carefree immortal's doing. He wanted to forcefully revive and absorb the power of the supreme rules, but suffered a backlash. If it's the Dark Forbidden Lord, there's no need for him to deal with the carefree immortal. Unless there's someone from the Dark Forbidden Lord among the geniuses, captured by the carefree immortal. A mighty figure asked carefully, Could the divine might heavenly sage be? He did not finish his sentence. The Holy Mother of Order shook her head. Probably not. You didn't witness the battle between the divine might heavenly sage and the carefree immortal. The carefree immortal is no threat to the divine might heavenly sage at all. If he's really the dark forbidden lord, won't he be exposing himself? In order to deal with an ant that he can easily crush, exposing his long-hidden identity is too stupid. Besides, the ultimate God has already said that the divine might heavenly sage's karma can be deduced. Chapter 956 Difference, Ultimate Origin World. Chapter 956 Difference. Ultimate Origin World. Hanju stared at the supreme rules after cursing the carefree immortal to death. The mighty figures left when they recovered and stopped rampaging. Hanju asked in his mind, can the carefree immortal still be revived? This karma doesn't exist. He was beyond dead. Hanju heaved a sigh of relief. Another enemy was gone. How wonderful. Next, he could cultivate and wait for the chaotic will. Hanju wiped the book of misfortune. Although there was no dust, it still felt ritualistic. You will always be my most important treasure, Hanju muttered to himself. In the cultivation world, treasures referred to Dharma treasures. Along the way, the book of misfortune had contributed the most. How many enemies had he killed, causing them to die before they could take revenge? It had bought him a long period of cultivation. He put away the book of misfortune and continued cultivating. He had just cursed carefree immortal to death. He couldn't go out and wander around. At least not for the next 500,000 years. 500,000 years were countless eras for all living beings. However, it was as if he had taken a nap in the eyes of a great Tao Supreme. The period of time was not long. Hanju closed his eyes. Mist spread in the dark void. The evil heavenly emperor stopped before a mighty figure and bowed respectfully. He lowered his head and asked, "May I ask if the chaos will welcome a huge change?" He didn't dare to look at this unknown existence, but his tone was not humble. This existence was the formless transcendent deity, but the evil heavenly emperor did not know his name. Yes, the formless transcendent deity only said a word, but it brought endless pressure to the evil heavenly emperor. What should I do? Continue what you are doing. The future is still the same. I don't need to prepare. You're too weak. You're not qualified to enter the next game. You're not even a pawn. The evil heavenly emperor was silent. Although the heavenly court was developing very well, his potential was not good. He had yet to attain the great Tao. The formless transcendent deity said, "Two people from the heavenly court can enter the game." The evil heavenly emperor's eyes flickered as he guessed their identities. "I understand. Thank you for your guidance, senior." The evil heavenly emperor bowed and left. The evil heavenly emperor came to Han Huang's palace after returning to the heavenly court. 4 heavenly soldiers were guarding the door. They immediately knelt down and bowed when they saw him. Divine General Han is still not out of seclusion? The evil heavenly emperor placed his hands behind his waist and asked softly. A heavenly soldier replied, "He hasn't come out of seclusion." They had never seen Han Huang, because the heavenly soldiers guarding this hall had already changed by more than 1,000 times. To the heavenly soldiers, Han Huang was an ancient legend. They were also looking forward to seeing the legendary invincible divine general. The evil heavenly emperor did not say anything else. He turned around and prepared to leave. At this moment, the palace door suddenly opened. A terrifying aura rushed out, instantly pressing the 4 heavenly soldiers to the ground. The evil heavenly emperor's dragon robe fluttered as he turned around. His expression was calm, but his heart was in turmoil. This aura. Good kid. The evil heavenly emperor immediately entered the hall, and the door closed. The 4 heavenly soldiers stood up and looked at each other, not daring to say a word. The evil heavenly emperor walked straight over to Han Huang after he entered. The latter was meditating. He was stunned. He thought he saw Hanju. Unknowingly, Han Huang already had Hanju's aura. The evil heavenly emperor stopped in front of Han Huang and sized him up. He smiled and asked, "You broke through?" Han Huang opened his eyes and said, "No, it's too difficult to break through to the great Tao Supreme Realm. However, I've learned a great mystical power. I'm not afraid even if it's a great Tao Supreme." So arrogant. Hee hee. I'm talking about the weakest among the great Tao Supremes. That's still very impressive. The evil heavenly emperor smiled. Han Huang also smiled. Han Huang changed. He was still confident and sharp, but there was a calmness amidst his arrogance, as if he was completely mature. Han Huang looked up and said, "Your Majesty, I've been immersed in the river of destiny and seen many things during this period of time. I've personally witnessed your past with my father. Actually, I really want to ask you a question. Why did you decide to rope my father in? You did everything you could to help him." The evil heavenly emperor sat down and smiled. "If it's only talent, I will admire it, but I won't do my best." Back then, for the sake of the mortal world, he dared to face the entire heavenly court alone. Such righteousness and courage are worthy of my trust. As long as you do something for such a person, he will never be ungrateful. Although your father only knows how to enter seclusion and tell you descendants and disciples that he won't care if anything happens to you. That's just to scare you. He won't let it go if something really happens to you. From the beginning till now, if anyone close to him died, he would think of all ways to help them revive." Han Huang was silent. He recalled his father's words before he left, and then thought of the scene of his father fighting the carefree immortal. A certain emotion surged in his heart. It was hard to say. The evil heavenly emperor changed his tone. "Huanger, cultivate well in the future. I don't need you for the time being regarding the heavenly court. I hope you can become the next divine might heavenly sage as soon as possible." Han Huang nodded, his eyes shining. "I will catch up to father and surpass him to achieve my goal." The evil heavenly emperor asked, "Oh, what goal? Surpassing your father is not the greatest goal?" Han Huang smiled. "An unspeakable goal." The evil heavenly emperor was stunned. Han Huang closed his eyes. The evil heavenly emperor stared at him in a daze. He suddenly felt it at this moment. He felt the difference. This difference was not as simple as potential, but the impact on the evil heavenly emperor was unprecedented. Furthermore, only he could experience this impact. "So I'm really tiny." This sentence echoed in the evil heavenly emperor's mind. 100,000 years later, Hanju opened his eyes and smiled brightly. What a domineering ultimate origin power. His ultimate origin power had transformed again. Not only that, but the nebulous primordial chi in the center of the primordial world had begun to transform. A higher energy gas that surpassed the nebulous primordial chi. Hanju named it ultimate origin chi. He could feel himself becoming stronger, with just a wisp of ultimate origin chi. His strength would increase by trillions, or even more when the entire primordial world became the ultimate origin world. It was immeasurable. The entire ultimate origin world was equivalent to Hanju's soul. He wouldn't die unless it was destroyed. Moreover, as long as he was still alive, he could still recover the ultimate origin even if it was destroyed. It sounded almost impossible to kill him. Hanju also realized the difference between the great Tao Supreme and Tao Creator realms. The so-called half-step creator realm of the ancient desolate divine spirit was too far away. The ancient desolate he relied on was nothing at all. He wanted the ancient desolate to replace the chaos. It was like a mortal trying to devour a sage, or an ant trying to eat the sky. Utter nonsense. Hanju began to observe the primordial world. He noticed something. The primordial world had given birth to a primordial chaos realm cultivator. This was too fast. Back then, hadn't the chaos been nurtured for countless years before producing a primordial chaos realm being? The chaotic chi was indeed nothing compared to the nebulous primordial chi. Chapter 957 Revival of Will. Chapter 957 Revival of Will. Hanju questioned himself. Should he put the 53 chaotic fiend celestials into the primordial world? They would help him unify it. But he realized there was no need upon a second thought. His control over the primordial world was absolute, and these 53 chaotic fiend celestials were born and raised in the heavenly Tao, after all. Karma was difficult to sever. He couldn't guarantee they wouldn't become a weakness of the primordial world in the future. Forget it. All eggs couldn't be placed in one basket. What if someone betrayed him? Besides, he could never reveal all his trump cards. Hanju pondered. He wanted his disciples and descendants to remain in the dark about all the forces he controlled. Even the people closest to him didn't know, let alone enemies. Han Ju observed the primordial world, and then teleported to the main Dao field. He hadn't paid attention to the heavenly Dao for many years. He should take a look. No matter what, he had protected the heavenly Dao several times, and it had already become his possession. This was his territory. He had to take a look. More and more heavenly Dao sages emerged in the heavenly Dao while he was in seclusion. There were already more than 10 freedom sages in the territory. The heavenly Dao domain doubled in size, and the immortal world changed drastically. Han Ju was very glad. He was right to leave the sages alive. The heavenly Dao wouldn't be so prosperous if he were the one governing it. He was only suitable to back it, not to manage all living beings. More and more heavenly Dao cultivators went to the chaos and spread the heavenly Dao's providence and karma on the vast map of the chaos. Some old people left, and some new people rose in the heavenly Dao. There were many people, and it was currently the healthiest development. The heavenly Dao did not carry out an absolute peaceful policy, so providence sects and dynasties often attacked each other. However, such a situation made the heavenly Dao stable. Yin and Yang were harmonious. It was feasible for immortals and gods to be righteous. The netherworld was reasonable and could be taken in. The hatred in the world was not suppressed. Although negative karma increased, there were no signs of calamity. Several hours later, Han Ju left and returned to the third Dao field. He called Xing Hongxian over. "Husband, do you miss me?" she asked with a smile. Han Ju smiled and said, "That's right." Overjoyed, Xing Hongxian pounced into his arms. Just as she was about to take the next step, Han Ju said, "I'm preparing to expand the Han family. What do you think?" Stunned, Xing Hongxian asked in surprise, "Do you want children or descendants?" Han Ju smiled. "Anything is fine. I plan to have a son every 10 million years." Xing Hongxian said in a low voice. "Then it's Xian Qingjuan's turn. She's been waiting for a long time." "You're willing?" "Of course. It's already my honor to serve you." "How can I monopolize you?" Xing Hongxian shook her head. She knew very well that liking someone was not about dominance. If not for Han Ju, she would only be immortal. He would accompany her for her life, and she could still find another good person. Women were never the most important thing to Han Ju, so she didn't dare to be greedy and try to control him. Han Ju smiled. "You have to persuade Huang'er and Qing'er to start a family when they return." Xing Hongxian nodded. "Huang'er is still fine. After all, he's a man. Qing'er is a woman. How can she take the initiative? She's your only daughter. You have to be careful about her marriage. You can't take her marriage lightly." Han Ju fell into deep thought. That was true. How could the divine might heavenly sage's precious daughter marry just anyone? How many people could catch his eye in the entire chaos? Choose from the disciples? Forget it. He still had to ask his daughter about her thoughts. If she did not have such intentions, it would be fine if she did not marry. After all, the direct bloodline had to be inherited by a son. Several days later, Xing Hongxian left in satisfaction. Han Ju continued cultivating. Since he didn't know when the chaotic will would appear, all he could do was continue cultivating. He had to become as strong as possible. In the crimson sky, the sea of clouds overlapped and the endless sea surged. The Holy Mother of Order stood at the end of the sea, majestic like a mountain. The sun behind her emitted a blinding light. A figure suddenly appeared in front of the Holy Mother of Order. It was Laozi. Laozi frowned and asked, "Do you feel it?" The Holy Mother of Order replied, "Let nature take its course." "What power is that?" "Supreme rules." "Then why would it affect us great Tao Supremes? I'm already like this." As for the myriad living beings, Laozi narrowed his eyes and asked, "Was my master controlled by this power back then?" The Holy Mother of Order said, "Everyone other than him." Laozi was moved. The Holy Mother of Order sighed. Fellow Taoist Li has already reached the peak of the great Tao, and can be considered to have transcended the rules. You should understand the difference between doing it along the way and going against the Tao. Go back and cultivate well. Wait for your Tao heart's guidance. Laozi asked, "My master was surrounded by the chaos back then. Although he used a great mystical power to suppress the calamity, the heavenly Tao could no longer develop. Could it be that my master compromised? The Holy Mother of Order did not answer. Laozi asked, "Who are we talking about this time? The divine might heavenly sage? The ultimate god of punishment? Or that dark forbidden lord and life lord?" The Holy Mother of Order still did not answer. Laozi understood something and bowed before disappearing. The Holy Mother of Order did not move. She was like a statue standing on the sea, ancient and weathered. There was no day or night in the Order world. The sky would occasionally change color, but it was still daytime. After a certain period of time, the Holy Mother of Order slowly raised her right hand, causing a tornado to rise from the sea and soar into the sky. The tornado suddenly exploded, turning into torrential rain that enveloped the entire Order world. The rain rumbled and thunder rumbled, as if a storm was coming. The Holy Mother of Order did not move no matter how the violent waves struck her body. Above the chaos, the high and mighty 7 supreme rules began to slowly fuse. Their movements were very slow, and there was no movement. Apart from a few mighty figures, no one in the entire chaos noticed this. On a barren star, Huang Zuantian was meditating in a huge pit. Countless tiny black stones floated around him. Suddenly, he opened his eyes and strange black patterns appeared between his eyebrows. He frowned and muttered, "What's going on?" The power of the divine authority. Black light suddenly burst out from his eyes. His entire body began to shake violently, as if he was about to explode. After a while, Huang Zuantian regained his calm. He raised his head again, and his expression became indifferent. He looked into the depths of the universe and muttered to himself, "Divine might heavenly sage, you've harmed me this deeply." He suddenly stood up and disappeared with the countless tiny black stones around him. At the same time, heavenly Tao, outside the 33rd heaven in a palace. The door suddenly opened. A terrifying aura erupted. A figure slowly walked out. It was Azure Heaven Mystic. Azure Heaven Mystic's face was filled with anger and killing intent. He looked down at the immortal world and shouted in a low voice, "Divine might heavenly sage, you severed my karma. I will definitely eliminate you." This would definitely have disturbed the other sages in the past, but no sage appeared this time. The 33rd heaven fell into a strange silence. Chapter 958 Enemy of All Life, Supreme Avatar. Chapter 958 Enemy of All Life. Supreme Avatar Hanju was still in seclusion when he was suddenly interrupted by a notification. Your good friend Heavenly Venerate Xian Du has developed hatred towards you. Current hatred points, 6 stars. Your son Han Tua has developed hatred towards you. Current hatred points, 6 stars. Your son Han Huang has developed hatred towards you. Current hatred points, 6 stars. Your disciple Zhou Fan has developed hatred towards you. Current hatred points, 6 stars. Your good friend Evil Heavenly Emperor has developed hatred towards you. Current hatred points, 6 stars. Your disciple Ji Xianxian has developed hatred towards you. Current hatred points, 6 stars. Your disciple Jiang Juesher has developed hatred towards you. Current hatred points, 6 stars. Your good friend Huang Zuantian has developed hatred towards you. Current hatred points, 6 stars. Hatred notifications appeared one after another. It was not only his good friends, but also many names he had never heard of. Hanju frowned. The chaotic will have begun? He checked his attributes panel. He was only 10,372,308 years old. He was still more than 400,000 years away from refreshing the mystical destiny book. This crisis came too early and caught him off guard. Hanju noticed something. Any existence that had entered the primordial heavenly prison did not turn to hatred. It seemed that the primordial heavenly prison was still impressive. It was immune from the chaotic will's influence. Hanju noticed that Xing Hongxian and Qing Wan'er had also become 6-star hatred points, but the disciples in the third Tao field did not. This universe of stars was created by Hanju. This was already a Tao field before they were nurtured, so they had nothing to do with the chaos. Hanju sighed and went to seal Xing Hongxian and Qing Wan'er. Then, He sent a dream to the people enslaved by the primordial heavenly prison, and told them about the chaotic will, and asked them to hide it well. He left this matter to them. The people enslaved by the primordial heavenly prison were the three pure sacred ancestor, Heavenly Venerate Wufa, Qiushilai, Sect Master Tianju, Heavenly Calamity Emperor, Fong Liang Pan Xen, Su Dudao, Great Sage Void Soul, Divine Robe Taoist Red Fate, Yang Che, Ultimate God of Punishment, and Ancestor Tian Su. Ancestor Tian Su stayed in the third Dao field, and was not assigned a mission by Hanju for the time being. The last person Hanju visited was the ultimate God of Punishment. He asked something of him. In the dream, the ultimate God of Punishment frowned. The will of the chaos is indeed terrifying. Other than those living beings who have never heard of you, everyone in the entire chaos hates you. Furthermore, they are absolute mortal enemies. If you want to resolve it, you have to defeat half of the providence in the chaos. The stronger your cultivation, the more providence you have. In other words, you have to defeat all the famous experts in the chaos to resolve this situation. Hanju was enlightened. No wonder no matter how the heavenly Tao's descendants thought of Pangu and the Tao ancestor, they still worshipped them. It meant that the two of them had successfully broken through. No, then why did Pangu and the Tao ancestor fail? Hanju frowned and asked. The ultimate God of punishment said, "This is only the death of all living beings. They should have encountered something after that. So Pangu perished and created the world. The Tao ancestor hid in the heavenly Tao, isolated from the chaos. If the heavenly Tao had continued to develop normally, it would have long been the center of the chaos, the strongest place." Hanju said, "You don't have to care about me. Just continue managing the chaos. Are you confident?" "Yes." The dream ended. Hanju opened his eyes. He teleported to the main Tao field, and discovered that his Taoist temple was already surrounded. More than 100 million disciples, called the 100-Peak Immortal River home. All the disciples wanted to barge into his Taoist temple, but the power of the system's Tao field made them helpless. It was not only in the 100-Peak Immortal River, but also outside. More and more cultivators rushed over. The will of the chaos was indeed terrifying. Without a summoner, all living beings came spontaneously. Most importantly, these living beings didn't sense this. In their memories, there was hatred towards the divine might heavenly sage that couldn't be resolved. They had only heard that all living beings in the world wanted to suppress the divine might heavenly sage, so they came. As for who was the initiator, there were various opinions. Hanju looked outside the 33rd heaven. The sages gathered in the Universal Hall, and were discussing how to attack the 100-Peak Immortal River, and deal with the divine might heavenly sage. He found it funny, as if a group of children was plotting how to resist the adults, who were eavesdropping outside the window. At this moment, Hanju felt powerful auras spying on the heavenly Tao. Great Tao Supreme. There was no lack of perfected Great Tao Supreme existences among them. It had to be said that the foundation of the chaos was still very strong. Hanju asked in his mind, "What will happen if I defeat all the experts in the chaos?" 1 quadrillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. Face the chaotic will. Will I die facing the chaotic will? 1 quadrillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. 40% chance of death. Hanju showed a frown. So dangerous? He returned to the third Tao field and thought, I want to see myself facing the chaotic will. 1 quadrillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Why was his lifespan still being deducted? Wasn't this question essentially the same as the previous one? Hanju cursed silently and chose to continue. His consciousness entered the illusion. When he opened his eyes again, he came to the 3,000 Great Tao. He saw himself looking up at the 7 supreme rules. The supreme rules emitted a dazzling light and twisted violently, turning into 7 figures. Even 2 of the figures were Huang Zuantian and Azure Heaven Mystic. The others were divine authority generals whose appearance could not be seen clearly. Great Tao Providence Divine Authority Avatar. Is this the battle I have to face? Hanju carefully sensed their auras. They were not weaker than the ancient desolate divine spirit, and the carefree immortal. Very strong. Divine might heavenly sage, Hanju, you are an anomaly. Your sole origin doesn't come from the chaos. The chaos tolerated you, but you have interfered with the fate of the chaos many times. Do you know your sins? A dignified voice sounded extremely cold. Hanju had never heard this voice before. The future Hanju in front replied, I've been staying in seclusion all my life and rarely fought with others. The enemies I've killed are all people I have no choice but to kill. I've never killed innocent people, much less have the authority to control the chaos. What crime is there? The dignified voice continued. The people you kill are all people who shouldn't die. Some of them will perform great creation, some will push for calamity, and some will build merit. In order to protect the people around you, you cause the deaths of countless living beings. Your sins are immeasurable. Hanju laughed. What a joke. A slight move will affect the entire situation? If you want to punish someone, you can always do it forcefully. Come, let me surpass the power of the chaotic will. I'll make you shut up today. The 7 supreme avatars swooped down at him. The 3,000 great Tao below rose, and wove into a huge net of the great Tao, wanting to restrain him. Hanju watched nervously. 5 minutes later, the future Hanju killed the 7 supreme avatars. He was extremely powerful. Hanju had to admit that from a spectator's point of view, he was really handsome. However, it was not over. Chapter 959 You have to die if you want to kill me. Chapter 959 You have to die if you want to kill me. After the 7 supreme avatars were destroyed, they transformed into countless stars that condensed together to form an extremely majestic figure. It was comparable to the entire chaos below, like a chaotic sky. Hanju was tiny in front of this majestic giant shadow. Even he, who had already reached the perfected Great Tao Supreme Realm, was a little shocked. This was even more exaggerated than cells looking up to a mountain. This size had already surpassed his realm. Although Hanju could expand infinitely, it was impossible for him to reach the level of chaos. But the majestic figure in front of him did it. The pressure that was visible to the naked eye was suffocating. Its aura far exceeded that of the ancient desolate divine spirit. A name appeared in his mind. Tao Creator. No way. He was going to face a Tao Creator? Hanju's heart sank. So the future Hanju seemed to be shocked and didn't say anything for a long time. The majestic figure was too tall and couldn't be seen. The dignified voice from before sounded. Hanju, it's still not too late to bow your head now. From now on, as long as you stay in your domain or the heavenly Tao and don't interfere with the chaos, or help the heavenly Tao grow, this calamity will be over. The future Hanju was still silent. The illusion shattered. Hanju opened his eyes with a solemn expression. What happened after that was either he admitted defeat, or he was insta-killed. Otherwise, it would not have ended like this. He felt that it was most likely the former. He admitted defeat, and hid in the Tao field to continue cultivating. No matter how strong the Tao Creator was, it was impossible for him to barge into the Tao field. That was why the other party was willing to give him a chance. He knew that he couldn't kill Hanju completely, so he gave him a way out. Hanju asked in his mind. In the illusion just now, was the last giant shadow I faced a Tao Creator? 500 trillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? This value was not the same as before. Forget it, let's be safe. Continue. No, Hanju heaved a sigh of relief. The difference between 100 trillion years and 500 trillion years was so great? He felt that the majestic giant shadow was worlds apart from the ancient desolate divine spirit. They were on completely different levels. Hanju showed a frown. What should he do? He had to think about facing the chaotic will before accepting the challenge of all living beings. Forget it, I'll cultivate first. In any case, he was hiding in the Taoist temple, and no one could find trouble with him. As for the disciples in the other Tao field, they were restricted by the Tao field and could not escape. No matter how strong hatred was, it would not change over time. It had to be said that the chaotic will was indeed domineering. The identity of the public enemy of all living beings came too quickly. It was simply like the restart button of the world. Hanju couldn't help but think of what Panga said to him. Everything was a lie. To be able to control the world, and one's own will. What was the meaning of life? Those who didn't reach the Tao creator were ultimately weak. 10 years later, Hanju opened his eyes and frowned. He had wanted to enter seclusion for hundreds of thousands of years, but the situation was not optimistic. He was fine, but the heavenly Tao was suppressed by the various factions in the chaos. No less than 100 great Tao sages were near the heavenly Tao. That's right, more than 100 great Tao sages. There were not even so many great Tao sages in the chaos usually. All sorts of ghosts and monsters appeared after the chaotic will revived. Half of the heavenly Tao's chaotic heavenly road was trampled on. The heavenly Tao hidden sect was in chaos, as if it had been disbanded. Hanju also deduced that Han Tua, Han Huang, Zhou Fan, and the other descendants and disciples outside were attacked in all sorts of ways. Although they also hated Hanju, the chaotic life forms didn't believe it, and wanted to capture them to threaten him. Hanju could use the invocation Tao to summon them all back, but in that case, he couldn't protect the heavenly Tao and the hidden sect disciples. Not all hidden sect disciples knew the invocation technique. Even if he summoned them back, it would become a hidden danger. Just like the future he had deduced, there was chaos in the 100-peak immortal river. He had to divert his attention. Hanju's eyes flickered. He began to circulate his energy and mobilize the power of the 3,000 great Tao. He had already grasped the 3,000 fiend celestial Dharma idols. Although he did not directly control the 3,000 great Tao, he had the power of their rules. He used the power of the 3,000 great Tao and the power of the ultimate origin to create a clone. This clone contained his ultimate origin power and all his mystical powers, but it did not have Dharma treasures or independent intelligence. He immediately sent his clone out. He split his will into two. One was responsible for the cultivation of the main body, and the other was responsible for controlling the clone. His clone quickly traveled through the chaos, far from the heavenly Tao. Where should I go? Hanju was a little conflicted. That place. Hanju immediately moved and quickly approached a chaotic domain. The past Grand Primordium domain. This domain became barren after the Grand Primordium Fiend Celestial died. The Fiend Celestial's murderous aura was still there, and no cultivator dared to approach. Hanju landed on the dilapidated Grand Primordium continent and said, I am the divine might heavenly sage. Since all living beings are my enemy, come to the Grand Primordium domain. I will welcome all enemies here and kill all who come. His voice resounded throughout the chaos. Even the living beings in the heavenly Tao could hear it. Almost instantly, powerful auras locked onto the Grand Primordium domain. It's time. Hanju was secretly nervous. This was the first time he had become the public enemy of all living beings. He deliberately threatened all living beings, because he was afraid that seizing the chaotic cheese providence would be too fast, and could not buy time for his main body to cultivate. He wanted to wait here for all living beings to challenge him. He wanted to turn this place into a forbidden land in the long years to come. All living beings had their memories changed by the chaotic will, but they did not become stupid. They naturally could not fight a powerful enemy they could not defeat. Divine might heavenly sage. A cold snort sounded. Rolling green flames came from the depths of the chaos. Above the flames, a man in a purple robe stepped forward. Great Tao Supreme. Furthermore, it was not an ordinary Great Tao Supreme. Hanju stared at him calmly and didn't say anything. The purple-robed man said, I am. Boom! Hanju suddenly appeared in front of the purple-robed man, and stopped in front of him with a palm. The divine might great heaven palm was invisible and colorless. It directly destroyed the purple-robed man's body, leaving only his soul in the void. The endless green flames below instantly dissipated. The purple-robed man was moved. His soul trembled in disbelief. Impossible. He was a Great Tao Supreme. How could he not even have time to react? But the speed just now, Hanju said expressionlessly. Do you want to die? The purple-robed man suppressed his fear and said angrily, Divine might heavenly sage, you destroyed my Tao field and stole my supreme treasure. Hanju clenched his right hand into a fist, and the purple-robed man's soul was instantly destroyed. The other party was a great Tao Supreme, and definitely had a backup plan. If not, he deserved to die. The chaotic will was to blame. Hanju turned around and looked at the void. All of you come out. I won't show mercy. Even if you are being controlled, you have to die if you want to kill me. It took him 10 million years of bitter cultivation to obtain today's strength. Although all living beings were controlled by the chaotic will, they were enemies now. Enemies had to die. Hanju could tolerate his family and disciples. He could tolerate the heavenly Tao. But there was no reason to tolerate the chaos. He spared the living beings in the chaos, only because he was afraid of the Tao creator. However, he didn't mind letting the first-rate cultivation realm of the chaos decrease by a few levels. Chapter 960 Number 1 Person Since Ancient Times. Chapter 960 Number 1 Person. Since ancient times, powerful auras appeared in all directions of the grand primordium domain. As soon as he finished speaking, Hanju also felt some familiar auras. 12 ancestral magi. Heavenly Lord of primordial beginning. The great Tao sages in the deity realm of the ruins of End also came. After millions of years, all 12 ancestral magi had attained the great Tao. These great Tao sages were originally on good terms with the heavenly Tao, but now, they had become enemies. Hanju was expressionless. He wouldn't show mercy. It was not only the great Tao sages. The great Tao Supremes also came. Terrifying figures that seemed to come from the ends of the ancient desolate, stepped over with world-destroying divine might. All the killing intent locked onto Hanju, and the dilapidated grand primordium domain trembled. Fiend celestial dharma idols condensed above Hanju's head. In an instant, 500 fiend celestial dharma idols condensed successfully. 500 was enough. The battle was about to begin. The 500 fiend celestial dharma idols faced each other and roared in all directions, each using a mystical power. The heavenly constellation fiend celestial punched out. The wind from his fist was ferocious and tore through the void. The shadow flood fiend celestial raised its arms. Countless shadow fiend celestials attacked like a torrent, unstoppable. The combat fiend celestial condensed a battle-intent divine weapon. The power of the divine weapon shook the chaotic chi and suppressed the aura of all enemies. Inside the Taoist temple, Hanju opened his eyes. Xing Hongxian had just finished receiving a round of absolute purification. It took more than 100 years, and his lifespan was also deducted. Absolute purification could only be used one-on-one. It was really troublesome to use absolute purification to break through the chaotic will. He could at most use it on his family and personal disciples. Not to mention the heavenly Tao. He couldn't even save the hidden sect. This path did not work. Xing Hongxian opened her eyes and saw him. She couldn't help but ask curiously, "Husband, what happened? I think I had a dream that we became enemies." She was extremely afraid upon recalling the dream. It was too real. Fortunately, it was all fake. Hanju said, "That was not a dream." He pointed at her forehead. The scenes of the 100-peak immortal river surged into her mind, stunning her. Hanju explained all of this to her, making her completely shocked. Chaotic will, Xing Hongxian muttered to herself, her voice trembling. Although she had been cultivating beside Hanju, she didn't understand his vision. Her cultivation level made her unable to even understand the chaos. She didn't even dare to think about manipulating everyone's thoughts. What kind of existence was the chaotic will that could control all living beings? In that case, what was the point of living beings? Xing Hongxian was confused. She suddenly felt that everything was meaningless. She couldn't be said to be weak. Everyone else was the same. What was the point of life when one discovered that one could be controlled by an existence? Hanju said, "Don't be afraid. I'm here." His words were very light, but they carried a lot of weight. Xing Hongxian looked at him and saw that he was calm. Her heart warmed, and her previous sense of security returned. That's right. With her husband around, what was she afraid of? Xing Hongxian suddenly thought of something. "Isn't Huang or?" Hanju said. "That's right. Next, stay here and cultivate well. Don't go anywhere." Although they are controlled by the chaotic will, they only hate me and don't have to kill me relentlessly. They won't find trouble with me before they are confident. I still have time to become stronger. Xing Hongxian nodded, and did not dare to ask for anything. All she could do now was not to be a burden. Now as Hanju only used absolute purification to test this function. It took too long. He decided to cultivate hard. Since he might not be able to defeat the clone of the chaotic will, he might as well force it. He used his clones to constantly kill the powerful enemies and weaken the chaos, forcing the Tao creator to interfere. In any case, Hanju's main body was hiding in the Tao field. The Tao creator couldn't hurt him. Let's just do it. Hanju's eyes emitted a cold light. Xing Hongxian saw the killing intent, but she did not say anything. In her heart, Hanju was the most important. Even if all living beings were controlled to kill Hanju, and were killed by him, she would never pity them. She was very petty. There were not many people she could be concerned about. Her husband and son were enough. Grand Primordium Domain. Blood chi surrounded the world. Corpses of different sizes were scattered in all directions of the Grand Primordium Domain. At first glance, this place was like a chaotic land. The ferocious negative karma was visible to the naked eye. Hanju's clone was sitting in the Grand Primordium Domain and waiting quietly. After 100 years, all the mighty figures who came to challenge were killed by him. However, most mighty figures had life-saving methods. They either left behind clones, soul fragments, or supreme treasures to escape. Hanju didn't kill them all, but some pitiful worms came to die without any life-saving methods. He didn't pity them. Now the entire chaos knew where he was. His terrifying battle achievements had also spread throughout the chaos. The name of the divine might heavenly sage had become even more terrifying than the dark forbidden lord. On this day, another mighty figure had arrived. Hanju opened his eyes and saw a sword chi crossing the void outside the Grand Primordium Domain, as if it was splitting the chaos into two. Above the sword chi was a figure dressed in a Taoist robe. He had white hair and sleeves that fluttered in the wind. His aura was like a sword that pierced through the chaotic void. Lousy! The two of them looked at each other from afar. The blood chi and chaotic chi around the Grand Primordium Domain instantly stopped as if space and time had stopped. At this moment, countless cultivators stopped and watched from afar. They didn't dare to approach, afraid that they would be affected. Lousy is here. I hope he can resist the divine might heavenly sage. Sigh, it's tough. The divine might heavenly sage is too strong. I feel that he's already invincible. He defeated the divine authority generals, killed the ancient desolate divine spirit, and defeated 100 great Tao sages. Since ancient times, the divine might heavenly sage is indeed number one. However, this person has done many evil things. He's the calamity of the chaos. What will happen to the chaos if even Lousy is defeated? Lousy has a chance of winning as long as he can restrain the divine might heavenly sage. He's not fighting alone after all. Hanju stood up and stepped out of the Grand Primordium Domain. Lousy looked at him and said, "Actually, you have other paths to take. The path you chose is a path of no return. That giant god was like this in the past. He died and his Tao dissipated. You can learn from my master." Panga slaughtered 3,000 chaotic fiend celestials and finally died. The Tao ancestor didn't cause too much trouble. He had probably chosen another path and compromised. From then on, the heavenly Tao stopped moving. An immeasurable calamity appeared every time his strength was about to improve. He couldn't ask Hanju to imitate the Tao ancestor. Times were different from the past. If he lowered his head, the heavenly Tao would not be as simple as stagnant. How many sages would have to be sacrificed to return it to its previous state? In that case, the heavenly Tao might as well be destroyed. Hanju decided to risk it. Compared to the chaotic will, who was more ruthless. At most, he would make Ancestor Tian Su use Life of All. Life of All was a Tao destruction mystical power, a destiny mystical power. It sacrificed one's cultivation and providence in exchange for the death of all living beings. It could only be used under a certain heavenly Tao or calamity. The price was that one's cultivation level would decrease by a major realm. Ancestor Tian Su wasn't a heavenly Tao life form. The entire chaos would be affected when he used this move. This move was basically a life and death struggle with the ninth chaos. Chapter 961 Absolute Invincibility, Chaotic Divine Authority. Chapter 961 Absolute Invincibility, Chaotic Divine Authority. Han Ju raised his right hand, and the Ultimate Origin Heaven Seal condensed beside him. Red light burst out and shone in the Grand Primordium domain. Looking ghastly and terrifying, he stared at Laozi expressionlessly and said, "Thank you for your reminder, but I won't show mercy if you become my enemy. Be prepared to die." Laozi's expression was indifferent as he said, "I just want to ask about the power of the Divine Might Heavenly Sage. You cultivated for 10 million years and surpassed us predecessors. Losing to you is also considered a heavenly Tao inheritance." Han Ju smiled. "How shameless. In that case, don't blame him for being impolite." He suddenly disappeared. Before his figure completely disappeared, he had already appeared behind Laozi. Sword Chi rose under Laozi's feet. Han Ju's eyes narrowed. He pressed down the Ultimate Origin Heaven Seal and suppressed the Sword Chi. He waved his palm and used the Divine Might Great Heaven Palm. Laozi turned around and used his finger as a sword. Both sides were extremely fast and had already exchanged billions of blows in an instant. Sword Chi crisscrossed and the chaos shattered. It was like a huge spider web that occupied the entire chaos. The scene was spectacular. As expected of Laozi, he's quite something. Han Ju sighed secretly, but he's still not my match. Han Ju suddenly stopped. The Ultimate Origin Heaven Seal emitted a terrifying spatial power and moved Laozi into it. Laozi did not panic. His body transformed into a Sword Chi, but he still couldn't escape. The Sword Chi began to shake violently. Han Ju suddenly looked up and saw that the void was suddenly torn apart. A huge river poured over, the water filled with Sword Chi. Sword Tao River. Countless Sword Chi swooped down with great momentum and collided with the Ultimate Origin Heaven Seal. Han Ju narrowed his eyes. The invisible power of Ultimate Origin surged into the Ultimate Origin Heaven Seal. It quickly expanded, and the entire Sword Tao River became tiny in front of it. Sword Tao River couldn't shatter the Ultimate Origin Heaven Seal, no matter how it surged. Laozi recovered his body and bathed in the Sword Tao River. He panicked. What mystical power is this? It's so powerful. Laozi's heart sank. He had guessed that he might lose, but he didn't expect it to be so thorough. He couldn't withstand it once Han Ju used his full strength. No wonder the 20,000 Divine Authority generals were destroyed. No wonder the ancient desolate Divine Spirit was extremely arrogant and still could not escape death. Laozi turned to look at Han Ju and said, "I admit defeat." With that, he vanished into thin air. The vast Sword Tao River above also dissipated. This battle fell into the eyes of the distant spectators. They only saw Laozi being suddenly suppressed by Han Ju. Then, Laozi died as soon as the Sword Tao River appeared. It was faster than insta-killing. Han Ju turned around and flew back into the Grand Primordium domain. The void fell silent. Han Ju used his actions to prove his invincibility. The title of invincible in the chaos was not exaggerated. In the ultimate God world, all the great Tao divine spirits gathered on a circular platform. The 5 great divine punishers were also here. Han Tuo's expression was dark. Etion scratched his ears and cheeks, very irritable. The ultimate God of punishment's sudden appearance excited all the great Tao divine spirits. Ultimate God, aren't we going to attack? The Divine Might Heavenly Sage is too strong. More than 100 great Tao sages combined are not his match. Among them are existences that surpass the great Tao sages. Yes, how powerful am I? I'm the first disciple of the Tao ancestor. But I'm like a mortal in front of the Divine Might Heavenly Sage. Could we be the Divine Might Heavenly Sage's next target? No. The Divine Might Heavenly Sage is in the Grand Primordium domain. He likely wants to revive all the chaotic fiend celestials and reshuffle the chaotic situation. After all, he's also a chaotic fiend celestial. The great Tao divine spirits spoke at once. The pressure brought by the Divine Might Heavenly Sage was too strong, causing them to panic and be filled with despair. They could no longer find anyone who could resist the Divine Might Heavenly Sage. Not even the leader of the divine spirits. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, the leader of the divine spirits had expressed that he would bow down to the Divine Might Heavenly Sage. They had encountered an unprecedented situation. Be it alone or in a group, the current enemy was not his match. If they had to describe it, it would be the 3,000 chaotic fiend celestials who faced Panga back then. The ultimate god of punishment's expression was solemn expression as he said, "Even if we join forces, we are not his match unless you are prepared to sacrifice yourselves." The great Tao divine spirits were all silent. Han Tua suddenly took a step forward and said, "I'm willing to sacrifice. The divine might heavenly sage is my father. Now that he has walked the evil path, as the divine punisher, I should put righteousness before family." Tian and the other three stood up and said in unison, "The 5 great divine punishers will live and die together." The other great Tao divine spirits were shocked. They didn't expect their juniors to have such courage. The ultimate god of punishment said, "Let's wait a little longer. The divine might heavenly sage hasn't slaughtered the chaos yet. Perhaps there's still a chance." He sighed in his heart. The chaotic will was truly terrifying. Even his own son could become a mortal enemy. Fortunately, Master was powerful enough. The entire chaos couldn't do anything to him. The Holy Mother of Order suddenly said, "Just because we have no choice doesn't mean that the chaos has no choice. We can use the power of the supreme rules to invite an absolute future mighty figure to kill the divine might heavenly sage." Absolute future? Tian asked in surprise. What absolute future mighty figure? The definition of the future is above time. Time loses its meaning to us after we attain the great Tao. However, this is not absolute. We have only surpassed the rules of space and time restricted by the 3,000 great Tao. The past and future below the great Tao are like illusions in our eyes. But the chaos itself is predestined. The existences who should rise will rise sooner or later. The supreme rules surpass the 3,000 great Tao and can invite mighty figures of the future. The mighty figures of the future will definitely be existences that surpass the 3,000 great Tao. The Holy Mother of Order explained, causing the divine spirits to be tempted. The Holy Mother of Order paused for a moment and said, "A top mighty figure of an era might not be a match for the divine might heavenly sage if they join forces. But what about 10 eras, 100 eras, or 10,000 eras?" The gods widened their eyes in disbelief. The ultimate god of punishment frowned and asked, "Can the supreme rules withstand such great karma? It's impossible for so many mighty figures to appear directly. It's equivalent to using the power of the supreme rules to manifest." The Holy Mother of Order looked at the ultimate god of punishment and said, "One supreme rule is indeed not enough, but the fusion of the 7 supreme rules will transform into an unprecedented chaotic divine authority that represents the power of the entire chaos. No matter how strong the divine might heavenly sage is, can he compare to the chaos itself?" The ultimate god of punishment was silent. The great Tao divine spirits were excited and expressed their support. The Holy Mother of Order said, "In that case, I'll leave now." She didn't ask the ultimate god of punishment to decide. She turned around and left. The ultimate god of punishment said, "Disperse." With that, he disappeared. He hid in the dark and immediately sent a dream to Hanju to tell him about this. Hanju expressed that he knew. After the dream ended, he opened his eyes and asked in his mind, "The Holy Mother of Order has invited the chaotic divine authority to summon the mighty figures of the various eras. Can my clone win? 1 quadrillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue?" "Continue. Yes." Chapter 962 Past, Present and Future Join Forces. What's the crime? Chapter 962 Past, Present and Future Join Forces. What's the crime? That's it. You scared me. Hanju cursed silently. His heart really trembled when he saw the deduction value. Also, Holy Mother of Order, you're really a two-faced dog. On the surface, you want to be on good terms with me, but you turn around and stab me behind my back? Hanju was furious. He had to find a chance to kill this fellow. He stopped thinking and continued cultivating. In any case, his clone was outside. During this period of time, Ancestor Tian, Su had already learned life of all, and could surprise the chaos at any time. Hanju was waiting. He was waiting for a chance to face the chaotic, Well, he wasn't in a hurry anyway. It just so happened that fewer and fewer people were finding trouble with him now, and the heavenly Tao had also returned to peace. It didn't matter even if all living beings hated Hanju if they couldn't reach him. The billions of disciples in the main Tao field couldn't leave. They could only swallow their anger and resume cultivation. As for the third Tao field, it was extremely calm. Above the chaos, below the 7 supreme rules. The Holy Mother of Order looked up at the 7 supreme rules. Great Tao divine spirits appeared one after another, including the 5 great divine punishers. Ultimate God is afraid of the divine might heavenly sage. The responsibility of protecting the chaos can only fall upon us. A great Tao divine spirit snorted. The other divine spirits nodded. They were already used to it. Previously, the ultimate God of punishment had been terrified when facing the ancient desolate divine spirit and the divine might heavenly sage. Although the ultimate God of punishment brought peace to the chaos, the gods felt that he was inferior to the primordial ancestor God. Back then, the primordial ancestor God was so domineering that he couldn't tolerate a single grain of sand. He wasn't as cowardly as the ultimate God of punishment. The Holy Mother of Order ignored them and began to cast a spell. A silver-white water droplet flew out from her palm and quickly expanded, fusing with the 7 supreme rules. Han Tua looked at the Holy Mother of Order with a meaningful gaze. This ancient deity is really unfathomable. What role is she playing? Han Tua was curious. He wasn't the only one. The other divine punishers were also very curious. However, the great Tao divine spirits of the older generation were already used to it. How could a god who controlled order be an ordinary god? Etion suddenly reminded. Holy Mother, don't summon the future divine might heavenly sage. His words made the great Tao divine spirits nervous. One divine might heavenly sage was enough to make them despair. If a few more came, don't worry. I will leave out the divine might heavenly sage, the Holy Mother of Order replied calmly. The deities began to wait and guard against the divine might heavenly sage. Time quickly passed. 3,000 years passed quickly. The Holy Mother of Order suddenly retracted her hand. The silver water droplet wrapped in the 7 supreme rules exploded. 7-colored divine light illuminated the void, and the 3,000 great Tao changed color. All the gods looked over. The 7 supreme rules had already fused into a 7-colored rule. It was like a dragon twisting its body. The vast aura it emitted humbled the gods. The Holy Mother of Order requests the chaotic divine authority to activate the absolute future and save this world. The Holy Mother of Order's voice sounded divine and dignified. The chaotic divine authority began to shake violently, and the 7-colored divine light became even stronger. All the gods waited nervously. This was the chaos' only hope. Han Tuo's expression became complicated. If the situation was really as the Holy Mother of Order said, his father would definitely die. The memories in his mind made him hate his father, but he felt pain when he thought of how he was his biological father. Etion patted his shoulder and grinned at him as if to say, "Brother, you still have me." The pressure in Han Tuo's heart decreased. The 7-colored divine light began to gather into a huge heavenly net, reflecting countless images. They were dense and changed extremely quickly. Even the great Tao divine spirits were dazzled. After a long while, figures began to condense in the 7-colored divine light net. All of them emitted a monstrous aura and were extremely powerful. The first batch of figures were all great Tao sages. There were 7 great Tao supremes, for a total of 170 figures. Figures began to condense again, just as they stepped out of the heavenly net. The second batch of figures was also the weakest great Tao sage. They included 18 great Tao supremes, for a total of 199 figures. The great Tao divine spirits were overjoyed upon sensing the terrifying aura ahead. The chaos was saved. The Holy Mother of Order began to receive the first 2 batches of mighty figures from the future. At the same time, the third batch of mighty figures was still condensing. Far away in the grand primordium domain, Hanju's clone also felt it. He raised his eyebrows and muttered, "This method is indeed impressive." He couldn't sense what this future power was about. This was because he had already severed the past and future. Other than deriving illusions, No one could investigate his past and future, much less come into contact with them. Hanju closed his eyes and continued waiting. He would attack after the Holy Mother of Order finished the summoning and was full of confidence. He wanted to bring true despair to the chaos. No matter how many supreme experts you summon from the past, present, and future, they will wail in front of me, the divine might heavenly sage. Hanju had always pursued invincibility to make the number of enemies meaningless. True invincibility was not something that could be suppressed by numbers. The 3,000 great Tao trembled slightly. The aura that gathered above was too strong. The actions of the great Tao divine spirits also attracted the hidden great Tao sages in the chaos. More and more great Tao sages rushed over. They were shocked to discover their future disciples and descendants. And there was more than one. For example, Di Jiang encountered 5 Di Jiangs from different eras in the future. There were already more than 10,000 great Tao sages under the chaotic divine authority, and the number was still increasing. Han Tuo saw his future self, but he did not go forward to greet him. Instead, Etian was very passionate. Han Huang and Jiang Juesher also came, and also saw their future selves, making them quite surprised. Divine Might Heavenly Sage? No wonder you summoned us. It's said that at the beginning of the endless time, a divine might heavenly sage once suppressed the chaos and disappeared for some reason. So he was destroyed by us. Ha ha ha. The divine might heavenly sage deserves to die since he dares to harm the chaos. Today's battle will definitely enter the annals of the chaos. Future me, what realm are you at? I'm ashamed. My cultivation level has only increased by a minor realm in the past 10 trillion years. I'm currently at the late-stage Great Tao Primordial Chaos realm. The void under the chaotic divine authority became more and more lively. This commotion made Han Tuo and Han Huang uncomfortable. After all, they were dealing with their own father. At this moment, a handsome man in a red dragon white robe flew in front of them. He cupped his fists and said, I, Han Yao, am here to apologize to the 2 ancestors. Han Tuo was stunned and asked, What crime have you committed? Han Huang sized him up and suddenly frowned. Han Yao said seriously, I won't help you. Sorry, but I, Han Yao, will never let anyone hurt the progenitor, not even you, the 2 ancestors. With that, Han Yao turned around and left. Han Tuo and Han Huang were stunned. The surrounding great Tao divine spirits were moved. Why did they summon a traitor? Chapter 963 A Million Great Tao Sages Unparalleled Battle. Chapter 963 A Million Great Tao Sages. Unparalleled Battle. A great Tao divine spirit came in front of the Holy Mother of Order and sent a voice transmission. Holy Mother, be careful. A traitor has appeared. Don't summon too many. The Holy Mother of Order did not answer. She chatted with the mighty figures from the future. The great Tao divine spirits couldn't say much, afraid that it would affect morale. Etian approached Han Tuo and sighed. Looks like the divine might heavenly sage is still influential to his descendants. Does this mean that it's very difficult to kill him this time? Han Tuo's expression darkened. It was unknown what Han Huang was thinking. Jiang Juesher said, Not necessarily. Perhaps he died. If the descendants want to hide this past, they will naturally beautify Master. Etian felt that it made sense. At the same time, figures were still emerging from the chaotic divine authority. The weakest was a great Tao sage. As more and more great Tao sages appeared, the experts from the future also realized that the enemy this time was very strong. So strong that even the combined forces of so many mighty figures were not enough. For a time, the void under the chaotic divine authority fell silent. The new future experts sensed the solemn atmosphere and did not dare to ask. They could only ask their past selves. Soon, the number of great Tao sages here exceeded 20,000 and was still increasing 30,000, 40,000, 50,000. The great Tao sages present were no longer excited. They only felt nervous inside. How strong was an enemy that even 50,000 great Tao sages could not defeat? There would definitely be heavy casualties. No one dared to disturb the Holy Mother of Order. They believed that she knew what to do. The Holy Mother of Order did not stop, which meant that it was not enough. Time passed. The future Jiang Juesher came to Jiang Juesher's side. The two of them communicated through voice transmission. Jiang Juesher's expression changed slightly. Jiang Juesher turned to look at the future Jiang Juesher and discovered that his future self was a little different, but he couldn't tell what was different. Han Huang stared at the future Jiang Juesher with an extremely cold gaze. The future Jiang Juesher smiled at him. Tian suddenly asked, "Why are you the only one in your future?" Han Huang had 3 future selves, and Han Tua had more than 10. Jiang Juesher was stunned and did not know what to say. The future Jiang Juesher smiled and said, "He has many future selves, but they are all isolated by me." Isolated? Han Tua, Han Huang, Tian, and the other divine punishers standing nearby were all stunned. What kind of method was this? The future Jiang Juesher smiled and said, "All right, let's wait and see. There will be a good show next." Tian stared at him and asked in a low voice, "Are you also a traitor?" The future Jiang Juesher shook his head and laughed. Jiang Juesher frowned and fell into deep thought. In the Grand Primordium domain, Hanju's clone was still waiting. The Holy Mother of Order is really patient, Hanju muttered to himself. There were already more than 100,000 great Tao sages. There were already thousands of great Tao supremes among them. The Holy Mother of Order was still summoning. Sigh. Something was wrong. If it was a novel that Hanju had read in his previous life, the enemy would only face destruction if they underestimated the protagonist. Counting Hanju's past enemies, every one of them had a backup plan and never underestimated him. It was just that they didn't overestimate him enough. The reason why they didn't overestimate him was that he kept a low profile. Hanju wasn't in a hurry. In any case, he had already deduced the outcome of this battle in advance. It was safe. In the third Tao field, Hanju began the simulation trial. The target was the ancient desolate divine spirit. He had secretly copied the data when he fought the other party previously. Several days later, Hanju was very confident. Holy Mother of Order, continue summoning. I'll look down on you if you summon less than 1,000,000. 10 years later, the chaotic divine authority finally left. The Holy Mother of Order turned to look at the countless mighty figures around her. Their auras became vast as they gathered together. The Holy Mother of Order said, "Everyone, we are about to face an unprecedented enemy. He is too powerful and can be considered the number 1 since ancient times. However, I don't know if he will be counted in the future. I don't want anything to happen to you. So gather enough forces and suppress him forcefully. No, it's enough to suppress any powerful enemy." Her words were very soft, but the hearts of more than 1,000,000 great Tao sages surged with blood. Looking up, such a grand occasion would almost never happen again. Great Tao Divine Spirit, lead the way to the Grand Primordium domain. Kill the Divine Might Heavenly Sage, and eliminate evil for the chaos in the future. The Holy Mother of Order waved her hand. With that said, the 1,000,000 great Tao sages erupted with a terrifying aura. Led by the current great Tao Divine Spirit, they flew towards the Grand Primordium domain. Divine Might Heavenly Sage, I didn't expect to really face this legend today. There are also legends of the Divine Might Heavenly Sage in my era. It said he's invincible. It's fine. With so many mighty figures joining forces, not to mention one Divine Might Heavenly Sage, even 100 will die. Ha ha ha, this battle will definitely rewrite history. Perhaps this is history, but we just didn't know. How terrifying was the aura of 1,000,000 great Tao sages. It shocked the entire chaos. More and more cultivators rushed to the Grand Primordium domain. Their cultivation levels were at least that of a freedom sage. No matter how low their cultivation levels were, they did not dare to go. Even if they hated the Divine Might Heavenly Sage, they would not blindly die. How fast were they? With the help of so many great Tao Supremes, they arrived in front of the Grand Primordium domain in less than 5 minutes and surrounded it. Hanju slowly stood up. Fiend celestial Dharma idols appeared above his head. All of them were majestic and gathered together. Even the Grand Primordium domain couldn't contain them. Hanju looked up and saw many familiar faces. His 2 sons were here, as well as his disciple. It was worth mentioning that Dao Sovereign and the other two were gone. These three were clearly great Dao sages and hated him. But they had never come to seek revenge. They were probably being beaten somewhere. To trap a great Dao sage and beat him, it had to be a dangerous place. Hanju was just thinking casually. His attention was still on the scene in front of him. Divine might heavenly sage surrender. A great Dao divine spirit shouted angrily. The killing intent of 1,000,000 great Dao sages erupted and locked onto Hanju. The void instantly shattered like a mirror, leaving only the primordial void. The grand primordium domain also shattered. A peerless battle was about to break out. Hanju looked at the 1,000,000 great Dao sages and thought to himself, I wanted you to summon 1,000,000, but you really did it. It had to be said that the Holy Mother of Order was still very capable. Unfortunately, it was not enough. There's no point in saying anything. Come and die. Hanju said domineeringly. The 3,000 chaotic fiend celestial Dharma idols were successfully condensed. They stood behind Hanju with their backs facing each other, and roared in all directions, shaking the entire primordial void. Kill! A great Dao Supreme in golden armor was the first to attack. He held a halberd that emitted a divine light and attacked Hanju. The moment he moved, tens of thousands of mighty figures immediately followed. Hundreds of thousands of great Dao sages used their mystical powers together. They first sealed this void to prevent Hanju from escaping. All sorts of domineering and exquisite mystical powers attacked Hanju. In an instant, he saw countless illusions, as if 10,000 reincarnations had passed. Petty trick. Hanju's red eyes lit up and directly dispersed countless illusion mystical powers. Chapter 964 All at Once. Chapter 964 All at Once. The 3,000 fiend celestial Dharma idols suddenly rushed in all directions. They were extremely domineering and sent countless great Dao sages flying. The power of the 3,000 great Dao was even used together, whistling through the battlefield. Thunder rumbled in the sky and the Dao River flowed. The huge tree rose from the sky. Countless branches divided the battlefield. The stars evolved and transformed into meteors that smashed into the great Dao sages in every corner of the battlefield. A manifestation of the great Dao even formed. The concept was magnificent and reflected the past. Hanju kept flashing, and the ultimate origin heaven seal hit the great Dao sages one after another. They were all insta-killed. Hanju didn't hold back at all. He used his full strength. No one could withstand a single blow from him. More than 500 great Dao sages had died in less than 3 breaths of time. Their bodies and souls were destroyed. They could revive if they still had a backup plan. If not, they would disappear into thin air. The dominance of the divine might heavenly sage greatly affected the morale of the chaos. The battle had just begun. The 3,000 fiend celestial Dharma idols restrained most of the chaotic experts. Hanju's main body killed crazily. The great Dao sages outside panicked. How is this possible? How can he be so powerful? Aren't great Dao sages undying and indestructible? They're indeed considered undying and indestructible in the chaos, but that divine might heavenly sage has already surpassed the chaos. No wonder we need the help of so many future mighty figures. Go use your ability and risk it. We will have no future to speak of if we lose this battle. Hanju didn't care about their feelings. His killing intent had already risen, and he definitely couldn't hold it back. He kept using the power of space to move around. The ultimate origin heaven seal smashed into the enemies one after another. Every enemy was smashed by the ultimate origin heaven seal and turned into dust on the spot. It was domineering and terrifying. Hanju moved again, but this time his movements paused slightly, because his opponent was Divine Lord Peacock. This fellow. Hanju's eyes flickered. The ultimate origin heaven seal landed and destroyed Divine Lord Peacock's body, deliberately giving him a chance to escape. Divine Lord Peacock did not disappoint him, and quickly fled. Divine might heavenly sage, just you wait. Divine Lord Peacock's indignant shout sounded. Hanju was indifferent. If not for the fact that he had allies among the enemy, he would have long used his Dharma idol fusion technique to slaughter all the enemies in the void. Hanju continued fighting. He suddenly discovered a strange figure. Outside the chaotic army, A man in a red dragon white robe was charging in. His attacks were extremely ruthless. He had already killed several great Dao sages, and was quickly surrounded. Hanju glanced over as he fought. He felt the closeness of his bloodline. Could this person be his descendant from the future? Very likely. Far away in the third Dao field, Hanju's main body began to deduce. He discovered that this person was a descendant of him and Liao, but not within 3 generations. Hanju was a little relieved. He didn't expect that someone among his future descendants would dare to risk their lives to save him. What's your name? Hanju sent a voice transmission to Han Yao. I won't reveal my name for the time being to prevent causing unwanted karma, Han Yao replied. Hanju could only deduce their bloodline relationship, and couldn't deduce his exact experience and name. Interesting. Hanju smiled and didn't ask further. His strength terrified more and more great Dao sages. But Han Yao's sudden rise became an outlet for their fear. More and more great Dao sages went to fight him. Facing the siege of dozens of great Dao sages, Han Yao was still very relaxed. He kept using the divine might Great Heaven Palm, and relied on this mystical power to stand invincible. However, good times did not last. An even stronger divine might Great Heaven Palm attacked, forcing him back. Han Yao looked over, and saw Han Huang attacking with a purple dragon condensed from primordial qi. His face was filled with killing intent, like the chaotic devil master, insufferably arrogant. Ancestor Han Huang. Han Yao's expression became unprecedentedly serious. He raised his sleeves and a terrifying aura erupted. A purple Dharma idol emerged from his body. It had 3 heads and 10 arms. Its long hair fluttered, and its exact face could not be seen. Han Huang said, I didn't expect to meet my own kind. Jiang Juesher and the 5 divine punishers attacked. Hearing Han Huang's words, they were secretly surprised. What kind? Han Yao shook his head. You're flattering me. I'm still far from it, but I've wanted to challenge you for a long time. He suddenly smiled crazily, completely different from his previous calm state. He suddenly rushed towards Han Huang, who was naturally not afraid. The two of them fought. The divine might Great Heaven Palm became an ordinary move. As Han Yao attacked crazily, his purple Dharma idol was the same. All sorts of mystical powers were at his fingertips. No great Dao sage within a radius of a quadrillion kilometers dared to approach them. Han Huang held the primordial power in both hands like 2 purple spears. As he waved it, his dharmic powers were like dragons that wreaked havoc. On the other side, Hanju had already slaughtered more than 10,000 great Dao sages. The number of casualties was still increasing. Impudent. A shout sounded. Hanju felt a rather powerful attack. It was invisible and charged at his soul. Hanju's ultimate origin heaven seal suddenly appeared behind him. With a flash of red light, a figure was trapped. It was an old Taoist with a terrified expression. How is that possible? My mystical power. The old Taoist roared angrily. However, he was crushed by the ultimate origin power before he could finish speaking. His mystical power was similar to Great Sage Void Soul's dark origin. It was indeed impressive, and could easily kill enemies at the same realm. Unfortunately, he was facing Hanju. Hanju turned around, and looked at the endless powerful figures in all directions. He laughed wantonly and said, All of you come at me together. Otherwise, you won't even have a chance of winning. He suddenly rose. Fiend celestial Dharma idols flew over from all directions, and quickly shrank. They entered his body, causing his aura to begin to increase. A terrifying pressure enveloped the entire primordial void. Even Han Huang and Han Yao, who were still fighting, stopped in shock and looked at him in disbelief. They knew that Hanju was very strong, but his aura. After fusing with the 3,000 fiend celestial Dharma idols, Hanju's aura reached the extreme. He wantonly displayed his strength, causing the entire chaos to tremble. The 3,000 great Dao trembled violently. The light and darkness of the chaotic divine authority changed. The space at the edge of the chaos twisted violently like a mirror, threatening to shatter at any time. Countless worlds, small worlds, hidden domains, and deep spaces felt Hanju's terrifying pressure. including all living beings in the heavenly Tao. All the living beings in the chaos felt like the sky was collapsing. More than 900,000 great Tao sages looked up at the high and mighty Hanju, all in shock. This aura. Impossible. How can there be such a powerful? A great Tao Supreme said with a trembling voice. A great Tao Supreme was top-notch in any era. But he felt like a mortal facing Hanju's aura. This shock was the most impactful to the great Tao Supremes, because they had always thought that they were standing at the peak of cultivation. At most, there was a difference in dermic powers. However, in front of Hanju, they actually felt a difference in cultivation level that they hadn't felt for a long time. It was so long that they forgot that they had also climbed to their current height from mortals. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.